We didn't get a chance to ask.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. First up is a invocation, if everyone would please stand, by the Reverend Fidel Diaz.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we come before to you to ask for blessing this meeting. Bless every leader is in this meeting. Bless every decision we're going to make today. We ask, Lord, for this county, for this state, and for our country. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mr. Barnard, are there any changes to the agenda for today? Or Margaret, since he's looking at you?
Good morning. That's such a habit. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Margaret Tusing with Building and Development Services. The changes to the agenda are to item number 2, which is PDR 1813ZG, Prospect Road Subdivision. We are deleting the stipulation A5, which was related to the sidewalk to the elementary school. So we have a revised recommended motion, and then there's also attached a request from the Manatee School Board, and a revised ordinance is attached to the memo. And those are all the changes to the agenda today.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see anything on announcements or stuff. I guess the next item would be to open for public comment on future agenda items only. Is there anybody who would like to come down and speak on future agenda items only?
Good afternoon, Glenn Gibolina, community activist and taxpayer. So the future agenda items, I can talk about anything I want, so I'm going to enter into the record the public comment on Airbnbs. This is for future Airbnbs. It has nothing to do with the local stuff. So my thought is, and I sent you each this email this morning. Steve, I lost your address. I just got that to you. So my question is that, first of all, you should do the records request that I did, because I think there's a lot of money that's going unaccountable in this. And I think the taxpayers have a right to know what a federal lawsuit is costing this taxpayer. Here's the problem I have, is that we have 17 counties that are already on board, and I'll get to that in a minute, and we have to do the heavy lifting for the other 50 counties. This federal lawsuit is expensive. It's not needed, so I'm going to put that into the record. You each have a copy of it. Now I'm going to go to the Airbnb site, which I also sent each and every one of you a copy of it. We have counties all around Manatee, Sarasota, Northport, south of there, Hillsborough, Pinellas. They all have agreements, 17 agreements on all sides. All the counties around us already have these agreements in place.
That's true.
I don't know why we're trying to reinvent the wheel on this tax thing. Lee County, Miami-Dade, Indian River, Orange County, Pinellas, Polk County, Putnam County, Santa Rosa, Sarasota, Seminole, Taylor County, Surfside. They all have agreements with Airbnb. This has been going on for 2 years. Enough is enough. Adopt one of these and let's move forward. My other thing on future comment is where the tower is. You know, we got that thing railroaded through, and now comes that we have a developer just north of there. The county has no responsibility to put in.
I don't think that's on the agenda today. I don't think we can talk. That's not a future agenda.
I'm talking about the tower. I'm talking about the tower property. Just
yeah,
the
we'll
tower.
keep it specific to the
about the
tower.
development that we haven't.
Okay, scratch that. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the tower property. The tower property.
Okay.
That's all I'm talking about. Why is there not a sidewalk? Any other person that wants to develop any piece of property has to include a sidewalk. Why do we not have a sidewalk in front of that property that is connected to Canaan School? That's my point. I would like you to consider to put in a sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 2. I think, Jamie, you're going to read this into the, oh, Margaret is.
I was
see you
hiding
hiding
from
up there.
Excuse me, agenda item number 2 is PDR 1813 ZG Prospect Road subdivision. Gary Adams and Black Pearl Investment LLC are the current property owners, with Bel Air Capital Group contract purchaser. This is a rezoning, which is a quasi-judicial hearing. This is a rezone of approximately 41.87 acres located north of Talavast Road and south of Whitfield Avenue, with the address of 7330, 7380, and 7416 Prospect Road. The rezoning is from agricultural suburban A1 to planned development residential, which is PDR, and is approving a general development plan for 143 lots for single-family residential detached. The applicant is here for a presentation, as well as Jamie Schindewolf, who is our planner.
Okay, if everyone that is planning on testifying today, please stand and be sworn in on either this item 2 or item 3.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you are about to present to the board will be truthful and accurate?
Yeah.
Has anybody at this point had any ex parte communication here on the board? Seeing none?
Mr. Chairman, I just want it to be clear that I have done a site visit. I understand from our county attorney's office that that could be considered ex parte.
Betsy?
I also have ridden my bike past this many times and looked at the property, so I guess that's technically a site visit, so I have been to the site.
Guess that's it. It's all yours, Scott.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Scott Rudisill. I'm attorney at Blaylock Walters. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, who's Bel Air Capital Group, the contract purchaser. And John Cavoli is here with me as the project engineer. The application, as Margaret mentioned, is for a rezone from A1 to PDR with a general development plan for 143 single-family lots. Okay, the site is approximately 42 acres, located on the west side of Prospect Road, just north of Canaan Elementary and the park site. As you can see, this is an infill project. The area is largely developed with residential projects, and this project is designed to be compatible with the existing development in that area. Future land use designation is Res 6, and the proposed density on this project is 3.4 dwelling units to the acre, which is well below the maximum allowed in that Res 6 future land use category. This is the zoning map for the area. The proposed PDR zoning is consistent with surrounding residential zoning. You've got PDR and RSF 4.5 in the immediate area. And as I mentioned, the GDP provides for 143 single-family lots, which is again consistent with the existing projects in this area. Project is proposing 26% open space, which meets the minimum. Also, you can see there's a significant portion of the site that's floodplain compensation and stormwater, which doesn't, all of it doesn't count towards the open space calculation, but a significant portion of the site will be open space. There are 15-foot buffers around the perimeter of the site. There's also a 20-foot roadway buffer along Prospect. And in addition to the roadway buffers, there are existing ditches that run along the north and the south, and then of course you've got the Pierce Canal along the west side. These are all on the outside of the buffer as they provide additional separation from the surrounding uses. And then you can see the project is designed with the floodplain compensation and wetland mitigation areas to the west of the site, again, to provide additional separation for the lots from the light industrial uses to the west. I think the commission is well aware that there are flooding issues in this area, and folks are concerned about that. But I think the commission is also aware that this project, it will be required to reduce that pre-development discharge by 50%, which should make a positive impact on the drainage issues in this area. I think you also saw in your packet the concerns raised by the school district related to the sidewalks. So I wanted to touch on that briefly. We have met with the school district and with county staff. We have agreed to assist in making those sidewalk connections to the north and the south. There's no stipulation, but we're confident that we'll be able to get that done at final site plan. There's a county park site to the south. As usual, Mr. Gibolina and I are in complete agreement.
Did that get on record? Did that get on record? Oh, my gosh.
About the county's development of the sidewalk in that area, but we've agreed to assist with that, putting in the sidewalk at the same time that the sidewalk is put in for the project. And we've also had discussions about making the connection to the north. There's some right-of-way issues there that will have to be resolved and things like that, but we have every intention to work with the county to do that at final site plan. There are no specific approvals being requested on the project. It's in compliance with your comprehensive plan and LDC. We appreciate all of staff's work on the project. We have a unanimous recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission, and we are respectfully requesting your approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Commissioner Whitmore.
Scott, why is A5 removed then? Because you said you were going on our updated memo. Why is A5 deleted? Is it somewhere else? Because I heard you say it's not a stipulation. Maybe this was a stipulation and then.
Right. Yeah, it's being deleted, right?
That,
Now-
we went back and forth on some stipulation language. I think ultimately it was the recommendation of the county attorney's office to strike the stipulation, so
Oh, okay. And why? Can I just ask our attorneys? I just want.
Well, Mr. Russo wouldn't agree with the stipulation, so I can't put it in there the way it's written.
Okay. Okay.
That it?
That was sidewalks because we had this and they were saying they were going to put them in and it got deleted, so.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I had the same question about the sidewalk. I was under the impression that the applicant was proffering to help with the sidewalk, and it seems to me that we should have some language in here that says that. If it's a proffer, we can accept it, right?
The most that I can write is what I had written in A5, that some portion of the cost is borne by the applicant and some portion is reimbursed by the county. I was advised that the counties pay 100% of the cost. I can't stipulate budget issues in a stipulation in the zoning ordinance. That's a fiscal decision the county makes, what we pay for and when. Stipulation is supposed to apply what the applicant does, not what the county does.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to ask the applicant then, because it's very confusing to me. I want to make sure I know where the sidewalk is and where the sidewalk isn't and what the right-of-way issues are.
Okay.
So can you answer where I assume there's a sidewalk in front of Blue Cottages,
Vista,
or whatever
right.
that's called, Blue Vista?
That's correct. So I think they're, let me go back to the aerial.
Can you zoom it in, somebody?
Yeah, you might put the zoomed-in aerial, it's a lot easier. I couldn't see the sidewalk, but the zoomed-in aerial that's in our packet is, if Margaret has one, you should use that.
Thank you.
Okay, that looks good.
You can use Mr. Pendley's diagram. You'll be happy that we use
Oh,
it.
okay.
We want to bring it down
Cut
a
it down a
little.
little. Yeah, there you go.
There we
Okay.
Okay, so the connection to the south, I think this should be relatively easy. It's county property, and so there aren't really right-of-way issues there. The only issue was who pays for the sidewalk. Our position was, since the code required the county to put it in when they built the tower, the county should be putting the sidewalk in. And we agreed to do it as part of this project, but we're requesting reimbursement. We did meet with staff. They seem to be in agreement with that. It did not make it into the stipulations that we saw, which is why we objected to them.
Okay. And to the property to the north, are you willing to extend the sidewalk when you construct your sidewalk across the remaining out parcel
Yes,
to
so-
hook into Blue Cottages Vista?
Okay, so we also
A cute little development, but I can never remember the name.
We also discussed the sidewalk to the north. The issue to the north, we don't have total control because there's an existing ditch that goes right up to the property line. So the sidewalk to the north will require the county to obtain sidewalk easement or right-of-way to put that sidewalk in. We've agreed to do it. Subject to that, we've also asked to be reimbursed with impact fee credits for that sidewalk, which staff seem to be in agreement with. But again, that did not make it into the stipulation that was drafted. But that was the resolution when we met with staff.
Okay. Yeah, the letter that we got from the school board is very, very clear that they think this is a public safety issue. I've never seen a letter like that from the school board. I live in this area. I see the backup of the cars. I see the traffic. I see the kids walking to school. I know that we put sidewalks in on the other side, but haven't put them in on this side. So the county has gone a long way to provide sidewalks to this school. I'm grateful that you're here on the public record saying that you're going to do what you can. If I'm saying this wrong, let me know. Do what you can to make sure the sidewalk gets extended. I agree that the county's responsible for the sidewalk on our side, but hey, on behalf of the taxpayers of Manatee County, I don't blame you for trying to get the developer to do it. I think that's really cool. For all those people that clapped when they said the county had to pay for it, well, it's your tax dollars, so just saying. But as I hear it, with the help from staff, we should be able to get the sidewalk extended. Does staff want to, I don't want to take you out of order, but.
Let me see, I think John has some
Oh,
light
okay.
to shed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I discussed this with Chad Busso, Director of Public Works, yesterday at the directors' meeting, and we're willing to participate.
Okay. So from my perspective in answering this concern from the school board, it sounds like the public safety issue of not having a sidewalk can be resolved with what they're willing to do and what we are required to do.
That's correct.
Does the applicant know, are there any plans for the road as far as road improvements? Have you been told you have any required road improvements?
We are anticipating some road improvements. We're not at final site plan yet, so we don't know exactly what those will be, but yes, I think we're anticipating some turn lane improvements.
Okay, and no offense to you, Scott, but I would like to ask your attorney, your engineer a question.
John Cavoli, Cavoli Engineering, I have been sworn. Yes, Commissioner, there our preliminary work indicates, and we've worked with Transportation Department already, there appears to be turn lanes required at the access points. We just have to go through the design and get them in there. So,
Okay,
yes.
and you don't think right-of-way will be an issue? You'll be able to accommodate
No,
right-of-way?
because, yeah, we, at least on all the preliminary stages and stuff that we have done, because at our access points, we have to culvert the ditch there. Well, in culverting the ditch, it gives us the additional right-of-way that we can use to put in the turn lane. So I think we're good. And if anything, all we have to do is extend the culverts in the ditch, and we'll be able to accomplish it.
I'm glad you brought that up. So the property to the north is still in the ownership of the property owner today?
Yes.
It will remain in the ownership. So culverting and ditching and the things that might need to be done could be done more.
Within the right-of-way.
Okay, within the right-of-way, and possibly you could get impact fee credits for right-of-way dedication, not necessarily for sidewalk, is my understanding. But I'm not going to say that that's a staff issue, but possibly if you have to dedicate right-of-way, you could possibly get impact fee credits. Would that be a possibility?
Good afternoon. Clark Davis, Interim Deputy Director of Traffic Management. The eligibility for credits would be based on the types of improvements that are required. The site-related improvements, the turn lanes into the site or to manage traffic to and from it, it would not be eligible if they had to dedicate right away to implement a sidewalk now on both sides of the street, because we have sidewalk on the east side and they would be building it on the west side, we could have that conversation. We have to be careful. Our impact fees are designed for capacity adding improvements, and our multimodal part of our multimodal transportation impact fee, those types of improvements are primarily in the southwest district in our methodology, and this is in our southeast district, so there's not as much room to attribute sidewalk and transit and bike type improvements to impact fees in this district as we have in southwest.
Yeah, okay, I know.
Commissioner, maybe I can clarify a little. So the problem with, because if you're specifically talking about the sidewalk, okay, the problem with the sidewalk is that the ditch is there, okay? Since we don't control the property to the north, culverting that section of ditch is outside of what is typically required in standards. So again, you know, with the help of the county, and if that were impact fee creditable, we could help do that. Or if the county were to obtain an easement or something across that property, you could put it outside the ditch, which is what we were expecting would happen with the property to the south of us. We can't control it, and we don't know how to get there at the moment, but the conversations have been positive thus far.
Okay. Tom looked like he had something he wanted to say.
Yeah.
Certainly. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Benek.
Mr. Chair, I just want to caution us, we are in applicant's presentation right now. We should really let applicant finish their presentation, then have staff.
Well, it's hard not to have dialogue when they are talking about working with staff.
I was trying to, one question and then cut
Okay,
it.
I will ask one last question. I'll wait for the applicant, for staff. Flooding, can you explain what your current flood zone is, what your post-development flood zone is, and what you think you'll have to do? And are you going for a LOMAR?
I'll answer in reverse order because I can't remember all that stuff. No, we are not requesting a LOMAR. All our finished floors will be 1 foot above base flood elevation as established by FEMA. We have already met with Tom Gerstenberger and Public Works to establish what we are required to compensate for based on the latest and greatest pure strain model, okay? And again, you get into real specifics in terms of elevation and everything. That's, well, graphics not there, but the floodplain compensation area is geared toward mitigating that impact within our site. On top of that, it's the county's requirement that we decrease the post-development runoff from the pre-development runoff by 50%. That doesn't benefit this community, that benefits the neighborhood. So we're addressing our impacts to the floodplain on our site, and then the net benefit to the area is Manatee County's code requirement of decreasing the pre-development runoff by 50%.
Okay. So, and because this is the issue for the neighborhood from what I've seen from, I mean, one of the issues, you know, traffic flow is an issue, but so a major concern for the neighborhood that has experienced significant flooding, basically because they were built with very old firm maps, as I understand it. They met the requirements at the time, and they've subsequently changed a lot. So you're going to be meeting today's. Do you know, is there a change to the firm map proposed on the site? I know very little about the new floodplain maps, but so you said you're designing to the study. So is that stricter than the firm map?
No, there are two things that impact this site. There's the FEMA floodplain, and that's an established elevation,
right,
and we will be 1 foot above that. There is then the very detailed site-specific pierce drain model, and that basically establishes flood elevations all along pierce drain. And so what's in front of our property, whatever comes up into our property and on our GDP that we've submitted, we identify that level, and that's what we're mitigating for. The benefit to the community isn't that, other than the fact we're not making it worse. The benefit to the community is the reduction of the pre-development runoff by 50%. That's a huge number, and what that basically does is you get all these little pieces that develop, and the net effect of all of those reducing their pre-existing discharge rates, the flood levels start to go down. You won't realize that till these developments actually come to fruition, because those stormwater management methods need to be implemented before you see the result. But it is a net benefit to the entire area. And that was the reason why Manatee County came up with that code requirement. It's an excellent way to approach the problem.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all my questions for the applicant.
Commissioner Whitmore?
No, mine won't turn off unless you can. I think you've tried. I unplugged it. It's still
Now they're
won't.
kind of going crazy again. Mine's going crazy right
Like
now.
having a seizure. There we go.
I'm in control.
Good. Just for a short
Scary.
while.
Keep saying
For a
that,
short
Steve.
while.
Okay, seeing nobody, was this staff presentation? Staff wish to add to this? And Jamie?
So we're good. Okay. Jamie Schindwolf, Manatee County Planning. I have been sworn. I just want to give a little more context. The applicant did a really good job of giving the overview of the project. But just to show where this is located in the county, it is South County and west of I-75. The request is to rezone this property to planned development residential in addition to approving a general development plan for 143 single-family homes. You can see the future land use here in the area in general is a mixture of Res 6 and then industrial light to the west side there. And zoning in the area is a lot of residential zoning with the PDR zoning to the north and the east, and then also the RSF, residential single family, 4.5 dwelling units per acre. There to the north, we have cottages at Blue Vista. To the south, Kinnan Park. The east is Prospect Road, and to the west is warehousing and distribution. This is obviously somewhat of a transitional area between what used to be agricultural land and is now turning into residences. Here you can see the site plan overlaid on what is existing. There are some single-family homes there. The applicant has gone through our affordable housing department and confirmed that they will not need to pay into the Affordable Housing Mitigation Fund once those are torn down and this new development is built. The plan does comply with our LDC, being a residential subdivision over 100 units, but with 2 access points onto Prospect Road. They are providing 2 open space areas. One is designated for passive recreation, and that accounts for 26.23% of the site. That's in excess of our requirement of 25% open space. There's a 20-foot green roadway buffer along Prospect Road and a 15-foot greenway buffer around the rest of the property. And they are providing sidewalks on both sides of internal streets. The cul-de-sac does not exceed our requirements regarding cul-de-sac length. Typical lot sizes are 40 by 120 feet with a front setback of 25 feet to front-loaded garages, 20 feet otherwise. Side setbacks of 5 feet, rear setbacks of 15 feet. They are in compliance with our comprehensive plan densities for the area, and as you can see, providing significant stormwater management and flood compensation areas, but I'm sure we'll get into more detail about that in a moment. Staff sees that this development is predominantly positive. They do have that frontage along Prospect Road, allowing them 2 full access points. Water and sewer will or is available. We do consider this to be an infill project given the other single-family subdivisions nearby. And PDR, the way they've designed this plan development, helps to address some of the possible compatibility issues that we may see with the first negative aspect, which is that adjacency to the industrial light, future land use and uses. In addition to a required buffer, they do have that flood compensation area on the west side, which helps to mitigate any potential negative externalities with that use. And then, of course, flooding is a concern, but they are required that 50% reduction in the allowable pre-development rate of discharge for the development. Ooh. Overall, staff recommends approval with stipulations and is happy to take any questions.
Okay, Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I was, just a couple things. I wanted to ask staff, I know there's a requirement to have connection, when you're within proximity to a school, you can require an extension of a sidewalk. I think if I remember correctly, this maybe goes beyond that distance. That's why we couldn't require them to build the sidewalk. I mean, I know there's issues of right-of-way but the owner owns the right-of-way, so it could be resolved, I think. Is that why we're not requiring them to build a sidewalk north? Okay.
Yeah.
North, I'm talking about up. I mean, south would, it's kind of our responsibility, I mean, that is our park.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Benek, I'll point out the particular section. With this particular project, the present owner is in, I believe, in contract agreement with the developer as far as the purchase of the property. The remnant portion of that existing property, which, as identified on this exhibit, is roughly 350 feet. As has already been brought up, as far as connection with the existing sidewalk to the north and cottages of Blue Vista, the alignment of that particular existing sidewalk is behind or west of the existing roadside swale that runs along Prospect Road. So, as has already been pointed out, there would either need to be additional right-of-way or a pedestrian easement dedicated for the extension of that sidewalk southward towards this development. Regardless of whether or not we're talking about this extension to the north or whether we're speaking of the extension to the south through the county property, should the developer proceed forward with the construction of the sidewalk outside or offside of the development, then common practice would be for the developer and the county to enter into a sidewalk agreement for reimbursement. I'm thinking Clark could even chime in a little bit further as far as he already did about the impact fee credits. But typically, if there's any extension of sidewalk off-site, it would be done through a sidewalk agreement. And that would be brought, obviously, back in front of the board.
Yeah, my recollection is there was a code requirement when you're in proximity that within 1,000 feet you have to make a connection, even if it's off-site. But I guess the issue is this is more than 1,000 feet, I guess? Is that the issue?
It's twofold. It's as far as dedication of right-of-way or pedestrian easement outside of the boundary of the project itself. And then from what discussions we've had over the years, ever since the Kuntz and Burt Harris Acts have come forward, as far as it being an exaction from the developer outside of the limits of the property. So certainly that type of action we would require or would be required to come back to this board with the sidewalk agreement for reimbursement.
And that might possibly be accomplished through gaining a right-of-way easement from the property owner?
Correct, yes, either a right-of-way easement or a pedestrian easement.
Pedestrian easement, I meant actually, yes. Not right-of-way easement, pedestrian. So that's something they were willing to do, and something that we might be able to accomplish the sidewalk. I didn't realize that Blue Vista was behind the ditch, so that would make sense, right?
Certainly, yes, certainly. And staff has already been in contact with the existing property owner that is in contract purchase with the developer as far as his willingness to furnish either right-of-way or pedestrian easement, and he has been amenable.
Okay, well, kind of like to hear that maybe during the applicant's rebuttal response. The adjacency to the industrial. We know from one of the neighbors next to that industrial area has had many, many complaints about that industrial area. Is there any requirement to put a notice to buyers that they are adjacent to an industrial area?
I'm not sure if there's a requirement, but we do have it as a stipulation.
Oh, we do, okay. I looked through here, I didn't see it automatically, but we do.
Yeah.
They are put on notice that they're next to an industrial area that might have dirt and noise and stuff like that. Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Servia.
Thank you. My light's not working, but you can see it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right. I have a question for staff, please. Is there a proposed pedestrian connection to the south, to the park? Is that something that is in lieu of the inter-neighborhood ties?
No. There is not one.
No. Is it possible to do that so that,
I
because I'm sure the residents here are going to enjoy that park.
Yeah, I think that it would be great, but there's a significant ditch in the way.
Oh, the ditch is there.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yep.
So once we get the sidewalk, I guess that's going to be the path to the park. Okay. And then I had a question about no specific approvals, right? And zoning is requested to PDR. I think it's the lot size that's kicking them into a PDR rezone. Is this a good example of a project that if the code amendments, the future code amendments pass, that wouldn't have to go through plan development?
If it was.
Yes, we didn't analyze that. I can't give you a definitive answer, if this would fit under one of the straight zoning districts that we're proposing.
Okay. I mean, it seems like it probably would. And then I had a question maybe for Tom, or I see Sia also in the back. I know that the Swift Mud County is currently going through the study of the Pierce Drain, and I know we have some preliminary results back. And is there any information within the preliminary report that may help us and help the engineer when they're doing stormwater design, something that we don't already know? Because I haven't seen the study.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Servia, I actually have a presentation prepared should the board wish it as far as this project and with respect to Pierce Drain.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think you need to, yeah.
That was my question, thank you. That happens to me all the time, she asks my questions.
Thank you. All right. With respect to, and this is going to be pretty much all inclusive, we're going from day one to present. With respect to Pierce Drain originated as a state enacted drainage district in 1920, which was later abolished in 1945. And as these exhibits illustrate, that drainage system was created back in the 1920s and 1930s, predominantly for agricultural use in this area. With respect to today's concerns, obviously the latest flood event, the one that occurred back in August 26th of 2017, and concerned obviously about the areas to the north of this particular project with respect to the Center Lakes subdivision. With this presentation, I will briefly go through each one of these particular topics. We'll go through stormwater design, through the history of Center Lake subdivision, through the 2017 storm event, and the Pierce Drain watershed study, and then end with some of the design elements that are required or in place for this development today. Let's start with retention ponds themselves. Retention ponds themselves are created artificially from excavation that's dug out on these developments as a source of fill. They are also utilized, they're predominantly utilized for water quality treatment and attenuation of runoff. As common practice, these retention ponds are designed to attenuate runoff for the 25-year, 24-hour storm event, which equates to 8 inches of runoff. In addition to retention ponds, and has already been brought up with this particular project, there would also be floodplain mitigation areas. Mitigation areas do look very similar to retention ponds, but their purpose is obviously to provide compensatory floodplain storage in lieu of attenuation for stormwater. This exhibit here is basically a cross-section, and you could easily make this Pierce Drain in this particular project setting. This would be Pierce Drain itself, the excavated area that is created for the compensation, and then fill that is utilized on site to elevate the home sites above and outside the base flood elevation. Floodplain mitigation is typically referred to as cup for cup. It's a balancing of the impact, the fill associated with the development within the 100-year floodplain versus the compensation that is provided on site. This is an aerial exhibit. This happens to be the Fiddler's Creek subdivision, which basically and essentially are going through this as far as the design requirements that we're speaking of today. Fiddler's Creek went through as well as far as providing soil use compensation areas and meeting the flow reduction requirement. With respect to Center Lake itself, at the time Center Lake was going through design and permitting, there was no requirement for floodplain mitigation. It was solely for a retention pond to provide attenuation of runoff. Center Lake itself was constructed and platted back in 1986. This exhibit here is of the firm panel, the flood insurance rate map panel that was in place and utilized for design and construction of Center Lake. This is with respect to the 1984 flood insurance rate maps. And at that time, Center Lake itself was located in a zone that was outside of the 100-year floodplain. Therefore, floodplain mitigation was not necessary. Then came the 1992 firm. With the 1992 flood insurance rate maps, the floodplain delineation was extended southward to 63rd Avenue East, all the way down through this particular project area and down towards US 301. That flood zone delineation, which is Zone A, identifies a 100-year floodplain. However, it does not provide a base flood elevation. However, for flood zone A coverage areas or delineation areas, code does require floodplain mitigation. This is the 1992 flood insurance rate map. This is the latest updated version of the flood insurance rate maps that are available to the county with respect to Pierce Drain itself. And if I could take 1 second, you will notice the comparison between the flood coverage from the 1984 maps to the 1992 maps. To reiterate again, Center Lake itself was designed and permitted based upon the 1984 flood insurance rate maps, where, again, floodplain mitigation was not a requirement at that time. Flooding in Center Lake has been historically caused by rising floodwaters of Pierce Drain, not the retention pond within Center Lake itself. And the historical years of Center Lake flooding has occurred in 1988, 1992, 2001 with Tropical Storm Gabrielle, 2016 with Tropical Storm Hermine, and the most recent, obviously, being the August 26th storm event in 2017. And just being a historical perspective, again, this being the 1992 storm event of Center Lake and the surrounding areas. With respect to stormwater design itself, as far as our county requirements and also those that we share with the Southwest Florida Water Management District, I'll go through a couple of slides on this particular topic, but start with the fact that with respect to our watershed studies and also with respect to any calibration of any drainage models within the county, we utilize on a daily basis the rain and stream gauge that we have in the surrounding watersheds throughout the county. Right now, there are presently 18 stations throughout the county, and this picture here is of the one on Pierce Drain itself at 63rd Avenue East. With respect to the data that's provided by this particular rain and stream gauges, this happens to be basically a time lapse looking from 2001 to present of the rainfall accumulation data on a daily basis. And as you'll note on this particular exhibit, the highest daily accumulations occurred back in 2001 with Tropical Storm Gabrielle, and then most recently with 2016 and the 2017 storm events. And just for reference, those particular rainfall accumulations are right around 7 to 8 inches for daily rainfall. With respect to the most recent event, the 2017 storm, and I'll emphasize again our design standards that are in place today. For on-site attenuation of runoff, stormwater retention ponds are designed to attenuate runoff for the 25-year, 24-hour storm event, which equates to 8 inches of rainfall within a 24-hour period. With respect to the August 2017 storm event, 9.67 inches of rainfall accumulation was recorded at the stream gauge at 63rd Avenue East during the evening and the 24-hour period from August 26th to 27th. However, if you look at a 3-day total, it equates to 13.25 inches. Now, there is also one other caveat with Pierce Drain. It is the Braden River and the discharge of runoff from Evers Reservoir. Pierce Drain ultimately flows into Gap Creek, Gap Creek being pretty much designated from 45th Street westward towards the confluence with the Braden River. The dam at Evers Reservoir is constructed as a wall. There are no mechanical lift gates or sluice gates as we find on the Lake Manatee Reservoir Dam. This happens to be and it could easily have been a picture taken today or in the past 2 weeks, as I did, of the Evers Reservoir of the dam itself. And this dam happens to be located roughly about a quarter mile south of State Road 70. And this being the comparison of that same general picture on August 2017. At this point, the runoff over the dam was about 2 feet over the top of that wall. And for the August 2017 storm event, this is actually quite surprising. The rainfall that occurred at this particular location at Evers Reservoir, the 8-hour, not even the 24-hour, the 8-hour accumulation was 12.86 inches, and the 1-hour total, the highest 1-hour total, was 6.
Wow.
So just a perspective of what we designed for today, which is a 25-year, 24-hour storm event of 8 inches within a 24-hour period. In just 1 hour at this particular location not too far away, we had 6 inches in 1 hour. With respect to the Pierce Drain watershed study, and I'm glad that I think it was either Commissioner Servier or Commissioner Manack had brought it up. The Pierce Drain watershed study, staff has already received preliminary drainage modeling data, which does identify flood stages and areas of inundation associated with the flood coverage. The flood study, the watershed study itself, has been calibrated using Tropical Storm Hermine and also the August 2017 storm event for verification. And as I already pointed out, the Braden River does cause a tailwater condition and the flow of runoff downstream through Pierce Drain and ultimately at the confluence with Gap Creek and the Braden River. The drainage modeling was also validated utilizing high water marks, flood photographs, and also additional input from residents in this area. This particular slide, as far as the exhibits go, the exhibit to the left is basically a grid system that's utilized by the National Weather Service to accumulate rainfall data. And the chart to the right is actually representing the daily totals. This again happens to be the August 2017 storm event. And you'll see these accumulation totals are approximately 8 to 7 inches of rainfall. But what you will also notice on this exhibit is this black line. This is the actual physical stage of Pierce Drain. And I think many of us remember back from the 2017 storm event, the big concern was how long the stage stayed up on Pierce Drain itself. And this, as far as the watershed study, graphically illustrates that it's taking over a day for the floodwaters to start to recede in Pierce Drain itself. And that is also caused by that tailwater condition effect from the Braden River. With respect to the watershed study itself, the floodplain inundation areas, the floodplain delineation associated with the watershed study has been verified utilizing not only the aerial photography but also drone footage that was taken by county staff shortly after the 2017 storm event. And in this particular slide, we'll notice that there's 2 areas that have been identified and represented, the one being Center Lake subdivision and the other being more of an aerial view looking southward from Center Lake down towards Westfield Avenue and also the Cottages of Blue Vista project. I would point out, especially on the picture here of Center Lake subdivision, that as far as some of these home sites that are identified in Center Lake, the model is very accurate as far as verifying that those are the particular homes in Center Lake that had the highest or do have the highest finished floor elevations in the subdivision. Now with respect to this project. This project, as included in the staff report, includes stormwater engineering conditions, which are referenced as C1 through C7, regarding the 50% reduction in allowable runoff, floodplain mitigation, and the need for drainage easements along Pierce Drain and tributary systems. The drainage design intent identified on the general development plan includes a 7.24 acre sole use compensation area on the western portion of this project and a 4.8 acre stormwater retention pond centrally located in this project for water quality treatment and attenuation. And this being the graphic representation of those easements and the floodplain and stormwater facilities. As has already been pointed out, there are existing drainage ditches along both the north and the southern boundary of this project, and obviously Pierce Drain along the western boundary. All three of these particular systems are routinely maintained by the county. One final note, the project area is also within the limits of a recent letter of map revision, which was approved by FEMA for the University Village project, which fronts along Talavast Road. This particular letter of map revision established the base flood elevation locally in this particular area at 18 feet. Therefore, the proposed finished floor elevation of lots associated with this particular development are required to be at minimum 1 foot above base flood elevation, otherwise 19 feet in elevation. And this being the most recent, this being a graphic representation of the most recent changes that have been made to the flood insurance rate maps, identifying those changes that have been made by that letter of map revision. And at this time, I'll be happy to address any further questions that the board may have.
That was great.
Okay, Betsy?
That was very good, and Misty, you might borrow him sometime when you get a chance to talk to your Center Lakes folks. I don't know how many of them are here, but it is, you know, it's extremely tragic what those folks have had to deal with. But, you know, the reality is that we've learned a lot since then, unfortunately. And the letter of map revision that you said was for the university whatever project.
Yes.
University Village, I don't even know what. Is that the apartments? Is that what that was?
Yes, that was the most recent project that was constructed along Talavast Road, just to the south of this project. I think it actually shows up on the aerial exhibits, but it's directly to the southwest of this
Burroughs project, the
Yes.
duplexes down there.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was
Yes.
thinking, yeah, I know where that is. Okay, just west of.
Paired villas. I'm sorry.
Yeah, paired villas, excuse me.
Impaired villas?
Talking developer talk, paired
Impaired
villas.
villas?
Impaired villas, I
that what you
don't
just
think
said?
they want, no,
I really,
paired.
I miss it when when
Paired.
Reggie's not here to help you.
Okay.
Okay, so that changed the map, so that is the latest map. And
Yes.
I understand there's new FEMA maps coming, and actually I've been called by a reporter. I obviously don't know a whole lot about those. What is the status of those maps? Will that change this again?
Commissioner Benak, with respect to this general area, it will have minimal impact or bearing on the floodplain delineation or the base floods in this particular area. The map amendments that are being processed by FEMA at this time that county staff has outreach meetings planned for early April are with regards to the coastal maps, the storm surge inundation maps.
Okay.
And there are also updates and amendments to the floodplain delineation and the base flood elevation of Gamble Creek watershed up in Parish.
Okay, so we'll hear that another time, but it doesn't apply here. That was an excellent report. Thank you.
I want a
Thomas, for
copy
having
of
that
it.
information.
Do we have a copy of it?
Very, very good. I did want to go back to the question Misty asked about 40-foot lots. So this property is currently zoned agriculture, right?
Yes.
So if they wanted 40-foot lots and it was, and I don't even know, I was trying to look it up, but then we got this great presentation, so I had to stop looking it up in the proposed ordinance that we have this afternoon. I don't think, but I'm going from memory, that there is a single-family zoning category that has 40-foot lots. But even if they did, they'd have to come through and do a rezone.
Well, they would still have to rezone the property to
Right.
the RSF 9. I was doing some calculations after Misty asked the question, so what I'm thinking is working is the gross density in this particular area, 6 dwelling units to the acre, which would be 251 lots. I was just trying to get to the net. So and net is 12 dwelling units to the acre. So the proposal is 4,800 square foot lots, that if you do a density just on, how many lots could you get at 4,800 square feet? What did I come up with? Sorry, I didn't write that down. That's nine dwelling units to the acre net. You're allowed 12. So I'm thinking it might work, but I don't know. I have to think a little bit harder. But we've always had everyone saying, no, you can't do it. It is true you're not ever going to get to the net in UF3, because it's 3 dwelling units to the acre. And I think 6 is the net. But it's going to be difficult in a UF3 designation or an Res 3. But with the residential 6, you would be able to do a straight zoning to the RSF.
Well, I'm looking at the proposed code. I finally found it while you were talking. The only place that has 40-foot wide lots is an RSF 9.
Yes.
So, no, you could not rezone probably to RSF 9 in, what are we, Res 6 here?
6, but if you do gross and net density, you can.
I don't think you could have a gross density of 9 units an acre in a Res 6.
You can have 6 and the gross is less than that.
Okay, I don't know. You understand? I'd say it says RSF 9 is the only category that has 40-foot lots. Maybe they could do it, but it would still require a rezone.
Oh, well,
It would still require a rezone, planning commission and board.
Yes.
And all of the buffers that are required today. This is why it's allowed, as I understand it. So I just want to clarify that. It really would not change significantly what they could do today if this was PDR versus RSF 9.
Right, the only difference is they wouldn't have to do a site plan. There would not be a picture associated with the rezone.
Right, but all of the floodplain compensation, all the sidewalks, all of the, I don't know about the setbacks. The setbacks would be generally the same, I think, because we always require a 25-foot front regardless if it's PDR or straight zoning.
Yes, in the new zoning, it's, the setback is 25.
Okay.
For a garage, 15 on, like, say, the other side yard, 5 side and 15 feet in the rear.
Okay.
So I think that it could work, but, I mean, I have to think about it more.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, if I may, and Betsy, that's kind of the point I was trying to make, that we go through a lot of expense and time and money to get to the same place that we're going to get, it looks like, so.
Yeah, and I guess I was probably more sensitive, Misty, to the comments that we're giving away our power to oversee zoning changes, and that's simply not true.
Right.
It would require a zoning change. It would require
Right.
2 public hearings, the same as this process. So you and I are talking about the same thing, but we're sensitive to different issues.
Mr. Chair, can you guys bring it down to the layman's terms? When you're talking about all these PDR, UF, and nobody, a lot of the residents here don't even know what you're talking about, so can you bring it down a little? You guys are planners, and you worked here and all this, but just bring it down, because I see a lot of people going, what?
Be cautious about getting too much in the proposed
Right.
land development code. It's not adopted yet. We can't really consider that in a quasi-judicial hearing.
Okay.
We
Thank
should save
you.
this
Sorry.
discussion for 5
I just
o'clock.
see a lot of people like glazing over, so. Sorry.
Never mind, thank you.
I learned something, but.
Done.
Okay. Misty? Did you
No,
have-
I don't have
Okay,
anything,
Priscilla.
my light won't go off.
That was great,
won't
Tom. Good job. Tom, you and I have had this argument. I totally agree, y'all engineers rock when the weather cooperates. I mean, as long as it rains 8 inches, 24 hours, gives you a couple days to let the flood waters go, everything works great. Trouble I always have with these is, once you fill that retention pond up in the summer, which you do, every day you get an inch rain, half-inch rain, your flood mitigation's full, everything's fine, then you get a 5-inch water. Well, it's full, if you get 5-inch in 3 hours, that water releases all at the same time and heads down. That is what concerns me on the drainage. It's not, I understand what you're doing, you're getting the water, but by August, every pond is full. And how much is that fast release of the water, which I don't even know if you can tell me, will affect going down? Or is it, there's really nothing you can do because, I mean, you have to draw a line somewhere. But even 8 inches an hour, that's fine when it's dry. But we all know it doesn't take an 8-inch water to start flooding once we've gone to capacity.
Certainly. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trace, I couldn't agree with you more. What we design as far as stormwater engineering, as far as what I look at, as far as regulatory and what John Cavoli or any other engineer of record who comes in this room for a land use hearing, we're designing to a certain standard, which is 8 inches of rainfall within a 24-hour period based upon the 25-year, 24-hour storm event. Should we get consecutive days of rainfall? There was obviously been prime examples. We had the Lake Manatee Dam failure that one year in 2003 when it was consecutive days of heavy rainfall. These developments are not designed for consecutive days of rainfall. They're only designed for one specific day of rainfall, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's designed for one certain standard, just like we have for Florida building codes as far as being designed to withstand a certain category storm event. It's the same thing that holds true with stormwater engineering design. It's designed for a certain storm event, and obviously 2017 was a good lesson. You're not going to design for every single storm. Whether it's the rainfall that occurred in this watershed or the rainfall that occurred over by Terra on the Evers Reservoir. We cannot design for every single storm.
And I totally understand that, and I know we have to follow the law. It's 8 inch, except that y'all always push that 50%. We're catching 50% more, which, okay, I get that. That's wonderful. But what you're doing is you're catching it and putting it in a pond. All right. Once you get over that part and the pond's full, it slows down much more on an undeveloped piece of property as far as how fast it gets to the drain than it does when it's in a already stored, for want of a better word.
Certainly.
And we know we have a flooding problem in this area.
Yes.
I have a hard time when I understand by law, y'all are designing it, y'all are fulfilling what we have to do, but I also know that it's not going to work one day.
Certainly.
And that, always troubles me when I know that we're going to have another event exactly like we had in 2017. I cannot predict when it, nor can you. And I've talked to many water engineers, and to me, we need to start thinking more about releasing water. We should not have to be releasing all the water all the way down the drain all at the same time. Down at the end of the drain, we should be maybe not catching quite a much and releasing it closer or higher, or vice versa. Continuing to do the same thing over and over is not working. And I know it's not practical to catch 12 inches of rain in a 24-hour. But I think we need to start, as engineers, looking at some different way or stepping it down. Maybe as a county, as we're doing this, I don't know if it would work in that district, but maybe in a place where it's undeveloped, and have a few places where we know the water is going to go and start storing it on, as it releases out of these subdivisions along the way. I don't know. But I fight with this a hard time because I know we're doing the best we can with what we know. Mm-hmm. But I also know that we're going to have another flooding problem, and that hurts me when the people have the water in their house. Thank you.
Commissioner Trace.
Yeah. And you and I discuss this all the time.
Certainly.
And I fight with this constantly.
And Commissioner Trace and all fellow commissioners, we certainly understand the concerns of not only this particular watershed, but whether it's Bowley's Creek, Sugar House Creek, McMullen Creek, Gamble, Buffalo Canal, things of that sort. This isn't just isolated to this one particular area of the county. It's countywide. And I think I brought this up just a little bit on the work session we had Tuesday. It's all relative. Not only is it relative to the development, but it's also relative to the impervious coverage. Because we are obviously taking vacant land and turning it into additional impervious area, whether it be the homes, whether it be pavement, things of that sort. And the means today to address that additional runoff, the higher intensity rainfalls, things of that sort, today is through the use of retention areas. Now, I will bring up with Pierce Drain Watershed, and as I brought up on several of those slides, we are at the point where we are receiving preliminary data from the consultant, CDM Smith, who I do appreciate allowing us to use some of that information on this presentation today. But we are almost to the point where we do have project alternatives. We do have means that are being identified within Pierce Drain that can provide some relief, that can provide some mitigation for this watershed. And certainly in the next couple of months and, you know, even into this year, into 2020, as far as the finalization of that watershed and outreach meetings for this particular watershed, that we will be identifying what can be done in Pierce Drain to help to relieve the flooding in this particular area.
Thanks, Tom. But great report.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I just want to ask clarification because the slides that you showed what happened to the surrounding properties that were built to the newer standards in the 2017 with the 6 inches of rain in an hour. They did not flood. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is correct, yes. And a lot of that is not only due to their stormwater engineering standards, but it's also due to the base flood elevation and the flood elevation, the finished floor elevation of those new homes, which are certainly much higher than what we find in Center Lake today.
Right. So I guess I agree to some extent with Commissioner Trace. If it starts raining 10 inches in an hour, yeah, we could have a problem. But the event that we had in August of 17, which was before the hurricane, interestingly enough.
Wasn't that the no-name storm?
Yeah, it was before the hurricane. I don't know what it was. It was
the tail of Harvey and
yeah, Harvey was happening down south.
in Texas.
Yeah, and we just got those continuous rains. And then we got a hurricane after that, just for the fun of it. But yeah, those rains were some of the biggest we have ever seen, right? And yet the neighborhoods that were built to the standards that this is being posed on this one did not flood.
Correct.
Okay. I don't know. We had a presentation and, we were talking about stormwater and long-term stormwater management. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to be building 60-acre lakes somewhere in the urban area, it's going to be very expensive to find 60 acres of property that somebody's willing to sell the county. We know what it costs to buy land when you have to go through condemnation. So that's a different discussion, I think, and we're discussing that in our stormwater fee discussion. But I just think that we need to clarify that we are making progress on this. We did not experience flooding in the homes there. And my home was built a long time ago in a subdivision that didn't have any, and he was platted way before there was ever any of this stuff, and we didn't flood. So I was in the area, so just saying. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Whitmore?
Just some comments that Priscilla made. I understand what she's saying, and she's brought this up, and I'm thinking, and she's very familiar with North County, and she's talking about that someday you're going to have to keep the water at a certain place, and you're just not going to have to allow development. And with our land use attorney, and I mean, this goes with this too, and that's why I'm just bringing it up. Wouldn't that be like because almost all that land is zoned future land use residential. So even though they're working as ag, thank God we've had a few residents lately that downzoned back to ag because they didn't realize their property was residential. So thank you for that, and I wish a lot of people would do that. But wouldn't that be taking of the land if we made them do that, or a Bert Harris? I just remember we just paid $5 million just for a 44th the other day. We voted to buy somebody's land. We had to. So, I mean, I understand where she's coming from, but fortunately or unfortunately, people have property rights on their land use. And in order to do what we're talking about, we had to pay a lawsuit to a developer because we made him build a road on a development that he built, and it would cost us about $400,000 because he won the lawsuit. We had to pay him back because we took his rights away. I mean, is this something that we have to look at in the future, Sarah?
Basically, what you're talking about is a moratorium. Now, there's a process for enacting a moratorium in all development. Right. If you want a countywide, you just want the Pierce Drain, you have to go through a process. You have to have 2 public hearings.
Right.
You have to have a study underway. You got to have the study done in 3 months. You can only have a temporary moratorium or you get takings claims.
So,
and many projects go through without the moratorium. So this project would go through anyway.
mm-hmm.
So, and you have to have something queued up to solve the problem. Moratoriums are only temporary solutions. So, you can move forward with your stormwater fee and get your studies going, but development will proceed until, and if you want to change your drainage standards to make development more expensive in certain areas by having deeper ponds, you can do that. You can change your standards. but it won't affect this project. This project's pending.
And I wasn't even thinking of this project, even though it's been mentioned. What led to this is I've been involved in moratoriums when I was out in the city. You have to have a specific date when they're done, you have to have a reason why you're doing, and you have to have a plan, so you're absolutely right. I'm thinking about the money we just paid just to buy some right-of-way continue working on 44th. It was $5 million, right? Yeah, and they wanted like 7. So, but anyway, that's what I'm worried about. And I understand, I get where Priscilla's coming from, but these properties in the 80s got future land use rights of residential. Unless the people around realized that they could downzone, which would be great, and you wouldn't be seeing a lot of this stuff. That's up to them. They have property rights. So I just wanted to make sure I was correct that this could be some kind of process in the future that we would have to have a definite plan for and ready to pay some big money.
Okay, thank you. Betsy?
No,
I'm sorry, Vanessa.
Yeah. Tom? Okay, so I understand the new homes that could be built as of this project could be built up higher and they probably wouldn't flood. Okay, I get that. But what about the homes where the water is still going to go and flood? Are because of more growth, is that what we're talking about here, to be clear? Is that, maybe the homes being built won't flood, but it's not going to help probably make it worse on the other areas such as Center Lake that does flood. I mean, is that a fair statement? Because I hear what Priscilla is saying, and I hear what Carol is saying, and I'm sitting here thinking, you know what, we've got a real dilemma here, and if we just keep doing the same thing we've been doing, it's going to get worse. I mean, we need to really stop and think about what we're doing, and what can we change to make it better. That's where I think we need to be looking. What can we do to make it better? We're not going to do a moratorium, obviously, but what can we do to improve the situation? And how soon did you say the reports would be in? A couple of months?
The Pierce Drain watershed study, we're probably looking at towards the end of the year as far as finalization of the watershed study and all of the associated deliverables. There is also an outreach meeting at some point, probably within the fall or the spring, the fall or the winter, that would be scheduled within this particular watershed to go over the 100-year floodplain delineation and the findings of the study itself.
So I really wish we could wait until we had that study so we could maybe make some decisions on how to move forward to protect homes that are already built that have had so much flooding before. And I'm going to say something here, and I know it sounds maybe drastic, but I need to understand. I need to make sure I understand. The homes that we would approve today could be built up higher. They'll probably be safe. However, because of homes that we're going to build, which is going to add to the problem that we're already facing with all the concrete, blah, 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 we're probably going to make it could be worse for, say, Center Lake. Is that a fair? I know that's a heavy-duty question, Tom. I'm sorry.
Well, I can
but
certainly
I look for you. I look at you for those heavy-duty answers.
Commissioner Baugh, with respect to this particular development,
There are a lot of
they are.
Not you.
Okay. With respect to this particular development, they are required to meet certain design storm standards, whether it is for attenuation of runoff or whether it is to provide floodplain mitigation for fill within the 100-year floodplain. Those are requirements of any development in the county today. This particular project, as any other development in the county, cannot adversely impact neighboring properties within the watershed. That being said, I have 2 points. First off, and this one's pretty much on a daily basis, development itself in Manatee County is not going to solve the problem. The only way that we can solve flooding, or I wouldn't even say solve it, because we will never completely 100% solve flooding in Manatee County. But as far as who the onus is to help reduce or mitigate flooding in Manatee County, it falls on the county government.
I'm sorry, it falls on what?
The county government.
Right.
It falls on us. It falls on us, whether it be a watershed study, or whether it be a stormwater utility fee, or whether it be CIP projects to provide additional floodplain volume or additional, whether it be channel widening, whether it be additional outfalls, things of that sort. That's certainly things that we take a look at in each one of these watershed studies today, whether it be for piers or for bullies, is what can be done to help reduce and mitigate the flooding in these watersheds. But then again, as we all know, it's going to require extensive CIP projects to help mitigate flooding, just like it did for Wares Creek. Just like it did for Wares Creek was a good $50–60 million project alone that we all know didn't exactly solve the problems on Wares Creek.
That was 23 years that took.
Okay, Commissioner Trace?
I was not talking moratorium or anything. Mine was more philosophical.
Right.
Most to say that we come down and they say they're going to do 50%, makes it sound like everything is going to be wonderful. Well, it will be as long as Mother Nature cooperates. We will catch 8 inches and everything will work great, but that's not life. And we know we have older communities with these newer communities, and I think it does accelerate it somewhat when the weather gets out of control, for want of a better word. Mine is just the same thing. Like I said, Tom and I talk about this a lot. I want to see what this study says. Maybe we can do it better to protect. Maybe we're going to have to take some of these undeveloped, especially in my district, that the water already wants to go to. Let me tell you, it was flooding in Florida when the Spanish got here. It floods in Florida, and it has nothing to do with development, has nothing to do. But if you build your house in a floodplain, you're going to live on, you may get your house up, but you're going to live on an island, because it will rain enough that that water is going to come. You think you can control it, but you're not going to control it. And Manatee County can make all the rules and regulations they want to do, and you can protect as many people as you think you can, but you are not going to stop a flooding problem in Florida. You get 56 inches of rain.
Yeah.
And I've looked at yours. I've seen 22 inches in 18 hours. That's the most rain I've seen in Florida on my piece of property. And it probably didn't rain a drop at the airport, because that's the way it happens in Florida.
It did. It was at the airport that 22 inches was measured.
No, not the one I'm talking about, because this was 1989. That's the most water I've seen on my piece of property, was a 22-inch rain in an 18-hour time. And like I said, the way it can train across you, it can only be a 30-mile. Doesn't mean the whole county even gets wet. So all I'm just saying is, I don't like the way that we make it sound like, oh, we fixed it, you're fine. The people should know that they are in a floodplain. It's, they are. So that's, like I said, mine's more philosophical. Today, they have considered every rule that we have made. And that's how we have to judge on it, because it's quasi-judicial. But like I said, Tom and I talk about this all the time, and to be honest, he's a tremendous public servant. He concerns him also, and
Very much so.
we are really doing the best we can with the information we have. But I wasn't starting a moratorium, or this is a terrible thing, or any of this. It's more philosophical.
It is a terrible thing.
It is a terrible thing. But it's always flooded, and always will.
Yeah, I'll just put my 2 cents in, and, I think it's, I feel guilty up here, because you sit there and you look at the Center Lake people and what they've had to go through, and here we are, having to rezone a piece of property for, their neighbors, type of thing, and yet we just approved, what was the duplex project down the road there, so we've sort of like set a precedent in this whole area of doing things, and we've done it based upon our laws and our regulations that we have here in the county. And but I agree with Priscilla. Flooding is reality in Florida, and apparently in Nebraska as well.
Yeah, and that terrible.
You can only,
Don't forget Missouri.
When Mother Nature wants it to rain a lot, you can, the engineers are brilliant, but they, it's not totally a perfect science trying to figure out whether you're going to get 20 inches of rain in a 10-hour period. The streets can't, handle it. I mean, I've lived here a long time, and that August 18th occurrence, my car floated down Manatee Avenue.
Yeah, you pushed it.
Literally. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I've never seen this on Manatee Avenue. I've seen the river come up and get some of the houses on Riverview, but to try to drive down Manatee Avenue, and I'm telling you, from 26th Street to 59th, it was all at least 4 feet to 5 feet underwater for a period of time there. And, so, I mean, I think, I would love to see, if we could, the pier strain study, because I'm hoping that might give us some solution to this area that we can try to enact, and I agree with you, Tom, it's up to the government to figure the solutions out to that problem. But I think here today, we have to move forward on this application. And to me, they've met all the requirements that we have in place right now. And, so I'm gonna certainly go along with it, knowing that I'm hoping that, that Pierce strain study, when it gets finished here soon, that we will take some quick action, because I don't think the subdivision will be built out in a year, so we'll have a little time to work with trying to help those people in Center Lake and those other areas that, are going to get flooded again. History's going to keep repeating itself, unfortunately. So, Commissioner Whitmore.
It's my thing's on seizure, so I haven't touched it.
Okay.
I've even unplugged it.
I've been on the board.
I'm on the board.
Just raise your hand.
For you.
I think we have to raise
No,
your
I've been on the board.
Betsy's
You're not on the
talk.
board. I was on the board.
I've got a light here.
I'm sorry, you're not on this
You're
board.
not on her board.
You're not on this board. The
I would
board I
like
can
to
see.
know
We're gonna do Betsy and
raise
then
your
Misty.
hand.
I just want to say, because I heard something, and it's not what I've been taught, and I want correction. Vanessa said, this development will make it worse for Center Lake.
That was
That
a
is
question.
not, I know, and he didn't answer it.
He didn't answer it.
That is not what I was told. You said cannot adversely affect. I want you to say it in her
Lord.
language. Will this development
Poor Tom.
make it worse for Center Lake? My understanding is when you have a 50% reduction, and this is how it was trained, so you can correct me, the 50% reduction is pre-development. The 50% reduction is to slow the rate of runoff, so potentially it could make it better. Know that that's not a guarantee, but that's what the 50% reduction is for.
It's a
And that
gamble.
the laws do not allow them to have more runoff on an adjacent property.
Are we in
Can you
Vegas?
comment to that?
Commissioner Benek,
How I was taught.
with respect to runoff from this particular development, the engineer of record, Mr. Cavoli, what he would do is he would run two different drainage model analyses. He would look at pre-development condition based upon today being vacant, semi-vacant land with some structures on it, things of that sort, and he'd calculate the pre-development runoff discharging from the project into Pierce Drain today. What he would then do is take a separate model, a post-development drainage model, incorporate the proposed retention pond into the design, incorporate the adjust the factors as far as impervious coverage, the time, we call it time of concentration. It's how quickly the runoff is flowing off the houses to the street into the stormwater system, and typically it is a lot less time for runoff and post-development condition to discharge than it is in pre, certainly. He would take those two models, he would take a comparison of those two models. He would take the pre-development condition model, he would take that particular number as far as the discharge of runoff, the flow of runoff leaving the site, and reduce it in half to meet the county flow reduction requirement criteria, which is essentially acting as a safety factor, which is essentially, as Commissioner Trace brought up, it's a low it's some additional volume, some additional coverage of area within the retention pond itself. He would then take that number, that flow reduction number, and meet that particular number, or most cases be a little bit lower just to be safe than that flow reduction number for the pre-development condition. But that's only identified, and that's these drainage models I'm referring to are only run for one particular storm event, the 25-year, 24-hour storm event. So as we brought up here today, if it's 8.1 inches of rainfall in the 24-hour period, well, you just kicked yourself right above that design threshold, and I'm not going to make a guarantee, or I'm not going to place a bet on what's going to happen. And obviously, as we've identified in 2017, once you get past that number, all bets are off.
Okay, so let me clarify and say it a different way then. They're designing to our stricter standard to meet the requirement that they cannot adversely affect their neighbors.
Right.
If it goes beyond what the rules say, then we can't guarantee anything. That's what you're saying?
Yes, correct.
I don't want it to be the public to say, well, gosh, Manatee County just allows development which adversely impacts their neighbors. That's just simply not true, if you look at the rules. Thank you.
Okay. Misty, and then we're going to go to public comment.
Thank you. And, we got to get these lights fixed.
Raise our hands.
And I'm really interested in hearing from the people who want to speak. I hesitate having too much discussion up here without hearing the neighbors speak, but I'm going to go ahead and do it because I'm not sure I'm going to get the chance again. And so I apologize for all the engineers speak to the non-engineers out there. I mean, I'm sure we were following along with it and it was fascinating, but just to simplify it, I just want to make sure that everybody understands. So if we go back to the 2017 storm event, which was awful, this land that we're talking about today was farmland, is farmland, undeveloped. And Center Lake had horrible flooding. And believe me, I've sat with Center Lake. I've seen people cry. I've seen people walk out just unable to discuss it any further. I feel for those people. Let's take that same event today. That same event happens today, the same results occur, right? But if this land is developed the way that we've seen it, hypothetically or scientifically, Center Lake doesn't get any worse. I think that's what Betsy said. So if 10 gallons of water, to make it simple, was leaving this property during the 2017 event, after it's developed, how much water is allowed to leave the property, Tom?
Based upon our county requirements, it'd have to be 5 or less in post-development.
5 or less gallons. So 10 gallons was leaving, part of that went to Center Lake, now it's developed land, and only 5 gallons is leaving. Less is going to Center Lake, right? Does that make sense to everybody?
Thanks for keeping it simple. Thank you.
Yeah, all the pre-flow.
Only if Mother Nature
We know
rains
that.
as
We know
she,
that.
you know, as they engineered her.
We're talking about the same event so we can analyze it, the 2017 event.
He can't predict that because he didn't engineer for it.
We're talking, if we could go back in time,
Listen to her.
we're just talking about the same event, the same rain, the same places, all of that. And it's a really good discussion up here. And I liked what Vanessa said when she said, what can we do to make it better? And I think that I know this board is always asking themselves that question, and the staff is always asking themselves that question, and FEMA, and everybody, the engineers on the private side, what can we do to make it better? And that's why you've seen so many changes from 1984 till today, because everybody's constantly refining based on knowledge, what can we do to make it better? So I just want everybody to understand that, yeah, developing this land doesn't make anybody's flooding worse. It can only make it better. Right? Okay. I think we should hear from public comment.
We're going to now open this up for public comment. The first person whose card I have is Glenn.
Hey, Glenn, you got your sidewalk, so.
All right, for the record, Glenn Gibellina, community activist and neighbor. I live on the street that parallels that throughway on 28th Street, so I'm very familiar with the area. My question is on the flooding. Have we thought outside the box? I mean, at my house, I use permaculture, I use swales, and during that rain, not one drop left my property. So I think there might be some other avenues to look into in future developments. The other thing I want to bring up is that this is for educational purposes only. There is no legal binding to my statements, so don't take it as legal or binding. I want to talk about affordable housing on this, and we want to plant the seed early in the development to the people who are going to sell it, the people who are going to develop it, and the end result of the builders who are going to build there. Now, Gary, I know Gary's a great guy. It's a good plan. But if it were my property, I would put a stipulation in there that 10% of those homes must be affordable housing. We don't know that yet he got a tax credit for not having to pay the affordable housing fee. I'm still unclear about that, but that's for another day. So what I would suggest to the homeowners is that they put some type of stipulation in there for affordable housing. And then by the time it gets to the developer, they say, hey, we've got 143 lots, but 14 of them are going to be affordable housing. You have a fire department within walking distance. You have a school within walking distance, an EMS that's at the fire station. all those entry-level jobs, EMS starts at 34,000, school teachers are at 44,000, the sheriff and the fire departments are about 50,000. They cannot even afford to live in that community that they serve. That's why we have to start planting the seed early for this affordable housing. And the ADUs, they're not accessory dwelling units, they're affordable dwelling units. So I've renamed that. So I think that these developers that come in should also sell a home with an accessory dwelling unit in the backyard and say, look, here's our $175,000 model. For another 30, we can give you an accessory dwelling, and you can offset the rent and the mortgage by making that affordable housing. We have to groom and change the mindset and, more importantly, the moral compass of our developers, because it's all about the money with those guys, and we have to change that. The other thing I wanted to bring up is 40-foot lots. Man, you could jump from roof to roof. You know, I played racquetball for 20 years, and that's 40 feet. There's not much space there. So I would encourage them, the people that are going to develop, that whoever they sell it to, encourage affordable housing lots with accessory dwelling units there as well. And Gary, it's a good layout. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to come up and speak on this Prospect Road subdivision? Seeing nobody, we will close public comment. Staff have any closing comments they'd like to add?
Yes, Jamie Schindwolf, Manatee County Planning. I have been sworn. I just want to clarify, they are not getting a tax credit. The existing homes are not part of our affordable housing stock, and therefore they do not have to pay into our mitigation fund if they're going to tear those down.
Oh, no, that's clear.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, applicant, any rebuttal comments, Scott?
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman, unless there are questions from the board.
Okay, we'll open this up for any other questions. I'm not sure. Misty, you? Okay. Betsy?
I guess I do want to ask your engineer, because there was so much discussion about designing this to the 100-year storm event and the additional standard. Are our standards different than other counties? Do other counties have higher standards to protect? I mean, you know, floods don't know county lines.
No, they don't.
So, and we're not the only county in Florida that's developing nowadays. Do you know, is this standard, should we be looking at a higher standard to protect existing neighborhoods?
Well, and Commissioner, that, again, do I say John Cavoli again? Cavoli Engineering, I've been sworn.
You did.
This is a very complicated, as you know, topic. To try to, you know, again, bring it down to conversation levels where everybody can understand it, it gets even more difficult. You know, some of the big parameters, first of all, Tom's, like you said, you guys should continue to tout him. He is your perfect employee. And I'm not just trying to get brownie points now. But no, Tom and I met. We are using the latest and greatest data for the design of this project that you guys have. I specifically spent time with him and Ken Cohn, who is also excellent in the department, and we went through everything. Tom and I fight the same battles. You guys need to understand that one of the battles you guys need to keep pushing to fight is against, I hate to say this, but the Southwest Florida Water Management District. They have a policy of trying to elevate water tables, and Tom and I fight the same battles. One of the key things that you should look at in the Pierce Drain is trying to get some of those seasonal high water table elevations down. If you don't have a wetland nearby, there's no reason why you shouldn't have your starting elevation be lower. I mean, Pierce Drain is a canal. It conveys water to the river. So if you artificially elevate some of those stages in your lakes, you have to put a control structure on a lake. That can artificially raise water elevation water elevations within a community. They shouldn't be high, which is what we're doing with this development. And I can guarantee you, I am going to have a fight with SwiftMud on this one. But both Tom and I are on the same page, including Sia. We have these same fights and battles with the district all the time. That's one key way to start addressing some of these flooding problems, especially in Pierce Drain. Go back and look at your current existing subdivisions. If you start the water at a lower elevation when it rains, it's exactly what Commissioner Trace was talking about. You have more room to stage up. So those are simple things that you can start to look at and go to those communities and say, hey, you connect directly to Pierce Drain, lower your starting elevation by a foot, cut that control structure out. Those are simple, cost-effective ways instead of buying 40 acres of land and turning it into a lake. You know, there are a lot of things you guys can do. I mean, you certainly have the staff that's qualified to direct you in those ways. In terms of the storm events, I can tell you, me personally, we run the 100-year event. Period. We do. So we run the 10-inch storm event because I don't want those phone calls. All right? Yeah, Manatee County standard is the 25 years. So is SwiftMud. I run the 100-year anyway. I don't care because I want to be safe. So when you reduce the 25-year storm event to a 50% reduction, the 25-year event is actually more intense than the 100-year event. So your 100-year storm event is going to be reduced by more than 50%. So you guys have good codes and things, but yes, keep moving in the right direction. You guys are on the right path, but you have other agencies that you also have to bring in line, and those will help you solve some of the problems you have.
I'm glad you said that because it kind of triggered it when Priscilla was talking about the hold back, hold back, hold back, all release. You know Millard Yoder, we used to call him Dr. Yoder, retired engineer, was excellent in stormwater, and he had brought this up every single time, how ridiculous it is to hold it all back, and everything get released at the same time by design. How ridiculous is that?
Millard was my supervisor when I moved to Florida. Yeah. So everything I have learned is based on his understandings and what he does. So, yeah.
Appreciate that. And you talked about the data, so I just want to clarify. So since we have been in the process of this study, did he have some data that he was able to get out of the Pierce Drain? Is that the data you're talking about,
yes,
the study that is underway?
We are currently doing our design plans for the project so that we can submit construction plans on this. So we are using all that latest data that Tom has. Even though the model hasn't been adopted, we're using it. So we're not going to be behind the 8 ball on this. When you guys finally do approve the study, you can see that our design had used all that data. So you're not, on this particular subdivision and development, you'll be as current as you can get with current data that has been provided to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, what's the pleasure of the board at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, which is the revised recommended motion received by staff. Would you like for me to read it into the record, or is it clear that we have it?
You could just refer to the update memo.
The one on the update memo. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0, it passes. Okay, at this point, I think we'll take a 10-minute recess before we come back for the Taco Bell.
tall he is.
All right, we're going to get started, right? He's back.
Yeah, as soon as I can find somebody. Okay, here they come. This is item 3, Taco Bell Bradenton PLN. Margaret.
Yes, this is item number 3, PDMU 188P Taco Bell. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. This is a preliminary site plan for consideration of approval of a 1,900 square foot drive-through restaurant on approximately 0.8 acres. It is located north of State Road 70 at the intersection with 33rd Street East. The address is 3203 53rd Avenue East. The property is currently zoned PDMU. The applicant is here as well as Jamie Schindelwolf for staff.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. First thing, any ex parte communication here?
Excuse me.
I drove by yesterday to see where it was.
Drive by all the time, not intentionally, but.
No, I did. I went looking
on
for
a
it.
major road.
Mr. Chairman, I did a site visit specifically for this.
I drive by it all the time, too, and
Yeah, I think we all do. Anyone who drives 70 probably.
very closely, when I was across the street at a restaurant, I looked at the site very closely.
I go by it twice a day.
Okay. So the next would be the applicant is here to make a presentation. Welcome. State your name, you've been sworn, and
Yes, I'm Ben DeVries, 161 Oakwood Lane, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. I've been sworn. I am the construction program manager for Taco Bell, Southeast QSR. Today, we've brought our management team, our consultants, to answer the questions that rose at the planning and zoning, and to address them primarily traffic, secondarily noise, and then finally hours of operations and some questions on security. So what I'd like to do is to save your time, because I know you've had a long session here. We'd like to bring the traffic consultant up and have get into the facts of the matter, and then we'll defer to the presentation on the actual site to our civil engineer and county staff. Vasu Prasad.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Vasu Prasad with Traffic Plan and Design, 535 Versailles Drive, Maitland, Florida. I was sworn. Well, today I'm here to touch base with you on traffic. There's been some concerns raised, and we took a look at it, and I prepared a very brief 4-slide presentation, just a bullet point my points. So a traffic impact analysis was developed. We had to follow county guidelines and standards. It was reviewed by staff, and it was approved by staff. In short, staff reviewed the study and reviewed the development that was being proposed and thought it was a low-intensity use development, and staff did not think further, more extensive analysis was required. Press. Thank you. So, in summary, the project is a low traffic generator. It's about 6 to 9 p.m. peak hour trips, which is roughly 1 car per minute. It's adjacent to State Road 70 and 33rd Street. Those streets were evaluated. It's on the county's system. It's tracked and so forth. And this project would utilize roughly close to 0.27% of the capacity of those roads. On a directional basis, it adds about 15 vehicles during the PM peak hour, which is 1 vehicle every 4 minutes. Now, low volume implies low congestion at access points, as well as low impact on State Road 70. Next slide, please. There were some, well, we can get into it more, but there are 2 access driveways proposed, one on 32nd and one on 33rd Street. These are both right-in, right-out driveways. Next slide, please. Either of those driveways, they have 30 turns or less, which is roughly 1 vehicle every 2 minutes. A couple other things about the project is that there is a multimodal element that has to be addressed as part of the traffic analysis review, and this project is going to provide some bike racks, crosswalk facilities. There are bus stops located within roughly 350 feet or closer, and MCAT 4 and 8, routes 4 and 8 service the area. a couple other things that aren't really traffic related, but it is does speak to the parking and the interaction between people and vehicles. Is there is a buffer between the proposed development and the neighborhood at the back. There were some concerns about cut-through traffic and so forth. We took a look at that. We thought that people cutting through the neighborhood to get to the Taco Bell would be very infrequent, in my opinion, just because of the nature of the surface of those roadways. They're probably, in my opinion, more likely to make U-turns and so forth. You probably have some adventurous people that might cut through the adjacent development rather than go around right to the back. So that was what we thought, and that's what, you know, my professional opinion is really. But I'm here. I'm welcome to answer any questions and so forth. Yes, ma'am. That concludes my portion of it.
Okay. I think, why don't we go through the whole discussion, then we'll open it up to questions.
Okay, I'd like to have Craig Cornelison, our engineer, come forward and talk about the sound.
Good afternoon, Craig Cornelison. I have been sworn to. Which way do you go? Can I focus that, or is that coming in? Just want to kind of introduce the project, lay it out, and here's, you can see the overall. I hope it shows up a little better in color than maybe on the black and white.
You want it zoomed in? Is that what you're asking?
Trying to zoom out or be out a little.
Zoom out?
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah, I just want to kind of give you an overall first, and then zoom in a second. 33rd Street, obviously 32nd. We've done some work on this project to, knowing that there was residential around it, we've pulled the building up at the intersection of 33rd and State Road 70. The drive-through is on the State Road 70 side. We have our speaker right here, which would also be on the State Road 70 pointing out. And kind of the parking is on the north side. So some of the things that were brought up at the Planning Commission were the noise, and we had originally proposed a 6-foot vinyl fence. We've since adjusted that. We've increased it to, I've done a little research on this. We'd now propose an 8-foot. It's actually like a polyethylene fence. Here's a kind of an example of it. It's a rubber core, rubber-filled polyethylene fence that the manufacturer says blocks about 98% of the sound. And on the back side of that would be the Simpson stopper shrubs and the trees. So that's pretty much right here. We'll be looking at toward the residential. So this is kind of what you would see. So from a sound attenuation, we've tried to be mindful and make sure that we've addressed that with the a little better than just the vinyl fence.
We also have our management team here. I'd like Randy Cheney to come forward. Randy will talk to some of the hours of operation and security and other questions.
Hello, Randall Cheney, Area Director for Coastal QSR. I have been sworn in. Addressing some of the operation issues, primarily our dining rooms are open till 10 o'clock during the week, 11 o'clock on the weekends. You know, some of the issues maybe someone discussed maybe about with loitering, you know, we're as far as security and loitering, you know, we're really advocate on taking care of our first responders, our police department. We donate 100% to our policemen, free meals, I mean, for if they come inside and half price, if they come through drive-through. The whole idea is, you know, we take care of them. They're there on our site, promotes the safety of the facility. We have cameras outside, you know, so we really try to promote non-loitering. You know, I was trying to look here as, you know, as far as security with the police, the cameras, the lighting, we're predominantly, for us, our business is, the majority of our business is during the lunch. We do have a little bit of dinner. So if there's concern about late night, the majority of our business is to us is by 8 o'clock at night. We do have some late night, but, you know, it just depends on what the business dictates. Any questions, or are we gonna wait till the end, or?
Wait till the end.
Wait till the end?
Wait till the end.
Trying to think of anything else. You know, we addressed the smell, smells. I don't know if anybody discussed about the smell. I'm telling you, you can stand outside any Taco Bell, you're not gonna have the lingering smells. We have a filter system inside our restaurant. Actually, it'd be to a benefit if it did, because it get a good, nice smell. So, and again, we address the issue, making sure that our building and our drive-through was facing 70 to help reduce any noise going into the neighborhood. I think that was it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in addition to the human side and the video side, we will post signs both to avoid loitering and to make sure that people keep the noise down, so we won't have those concerns go forward. With that, I think that's our presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Got a couple of commissioners on the board here. Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I did have a question about the drive-through, the literal drive-through, that you can go in one entrance and go out onto the residential street. I just wondered, I rarely see that in this type of a situation where you have a fast food restaurant that you can literally cut right through it. And what concerns me is folks that will be queuing up at that intersection. I don't live far from here, I go through there a lot, whether or not they're going to use that as a cut-through, and whether or not there's anything you can do, because that would be a conflict with pedestrians in the parking lot, I would think, that I would be concerned about during busy times. If people are trying to cut through there and pedestrians are trying to walk through, what would you do to mitigate that?
Make sure I understand. You're talking about this parking lot being a cut-through, or?
Yeah. So you can turn right into your parking lot and go right through your parking lot, zoom right through, and come out and avoid the light, avoid getting stacked up there. That concerns me. That it could become a cut through for people trying to avoid the light at 70 and 33rd.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought of that.
Depends how you design it. I'm going to have
Did we have this here? Maybe I brought it up in my briefing. I can't remember. I feel like I talked about this before.
I think, Commissioner, I think that's a concern that I've seen and I've observed and had to discuss at other similar establishments, not necessarily named Taco Bell. One of the things that happens, look, there are always going to be people that are probably, the term they use in traffic engineering is aggressive drivers, and there are always some folks that are more aggressive. I was in Miami last week, and people in Miami drive a little bit differently, compared to other places. So you will have some aggressive drivers, but one of the things that the drive aisle here is a little bit narrower. You have people potentially backing out. You do have some pedestrian activity, yes. There are slopes on because typically these sites are built up a little bit. All that makes for a little bit more, you've got to be a little bit more cautious when you're driving through the parking lot. It is not to say that no one will never cut through, but the design of these parking lots with the striping and all these type of things is supposed to not be an environment for that type of speeding and so on. It's possible it could happen, but just if I had to cut through there, I would have to drive a little bit slower through there, and that speed, me having to drive slower is a deterrent, basically.
Have you ever seen any kind of other speed restriction devices, a speed bump, anything else that could?
There are speed bumps. They're not common. Some of the issues with speed bumps is just drainage issues and things like that. And Craig could probably speak to that. I don't know how the slopes and those things go here.
Yeah, but we'd like to do it later if it's needed.
Yeah, I think we'd be okay.
I think one thing is that if there is an observed speeding issue, and it's a frequent issue, people are cutting through there to avoid the right turn. then, that's probably a measure that can be looked at, from what I'm hearing. One of the things, though, that the cut through here would be a right turn, if you were making a right turn. And typically, to avoid a left turn is probably something more people would try to avoid. A right turn is not a difficult movement, so you could probably come up and make that right turn. If you can't get to it, that'll be an issue, but there is a right turn lane essentially proposed, so that will certainly help allow people to get to the signal to make the right turn.
Okay, and you mentioned 11 o'clock dining on weekends. Is that the standard, that you actually close your dining room at 11 o'clock on weekends?
Yeah, please. Could you pass this out to the?
That is the standard. So typically 10 during the week, Friday, Saturday, 11 o'clock on our dining room.
So all those late night Taco Bell ads mean you got to go through the drive-through?
That is
what you're
correct.
telling me?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Part of that reasoning is for the security of our staff. They close at 11. All the stores, we have 200 stores, they close at 11 so that we don't have security problems. So that's and obviously traffic's much less at that time.
So the drive-through's open 24 hours till 2 o'clock?
No. Typically, I'd say an average store is anywhere from 1 to 2 a.m.
And then y'all are open for breakfast back at 6?
7 a.m.
Oh, 7.
And again, 7 and 8 a.m.
They have breakfast? Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
taco in the morning?
Yeah.
And do y'all not have a Taco Bell on Manatee Avenue right next to a residential?
Yep,
Yes, we do.
Have y'all had any complaints?
No, we have not.
never.
Thank you.
No.
I go there all the time.
Had an experience
That's
with
why I
it.
feed my
And I was also going to say, and it's not in this location, I just went through this recently in our Brandon location, where it's exactly the same scenario, where we were building right up to a residential, and I'm being honest, we haven't had any issues. We've got the fence in the back, with the drive-through, and, again, same situation. We built the store closer to the main road, like 70 here, and, to try to divert all that from the residential area.
Okay. Thank you. Misty, I guess.
So my light's not on there?
Okay,
Just raise
that's
your
fine.
Your light doesn't work, face it.
It was working.
Kevin told me it's working. I have a question about DOT. Did you guys do a pre-app with DOT?
Yes.
And did you seek a write-in, write-out only, and did they turn you down?
Yes, no access on 70.
Okay,
They want the access on the side streets.
Oh, so that's why.
That are too close.
okay. And did you do a pre-app with Manatee County before you submitted?
Yes.
You did?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. That's all I have for now. Thanks.
Okay. Staff, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Working Jamie hard today. Hard today.
It's a Jamie day.
All right, good afternoon. Jamie Schindewolf, Manatee County Planning, and I have been sworn. The application before you today is for a preliminary site plan for a restaurant with drive-through facilities. It's proposed to be 1,900 square feet with an FAR of .06. This is where the site is located generally in the county. The future land use for the site is ROR, which stands for Retail Office Residential. The range of potential uses include neighborhood, community, and regional serving commercial uses, mixed with medium and high-density residential, lodging, office, public and semi-public schools, and recreational uses. A restaurant with drive-through facilities is considered a neighborhood or community serving use. The site is zoned PDMU, Plan Development Mixed Use. This is typically used for groupings of residential, commercial, office, industrial, or other uses. There's a very wide range of uses that are permitted in PDMU. There's a range of commercial development nearby this site, which includes a McDonald's, an AutoZone, and Ollie's Bargain Outlet. The history of the zoning in this area, as far as we can tell, is that in 1925, the Central Gardens subdivision plat was filed. The residences present on the property now were built in the 50s. There is no PDMU ordinance on the record. We believe that it was part of the county overall zoning that took place in 1989, 1990. This application came in July of last year. Here you can see the site plan. The FAR, as I stated, is 0.06. The maximum in this district is 0.50. They're providing 30% open space when 25% is required. They're providing 25 parking spaces and 2 bicycle parking spaces. They are set back 69.2 feet from the residential uses to the rear, which exceeds our code requirement by quite a bit. We do have specific standards for drive-through establishments, and this site plan does meet those standards. The drive aisles are not adjacent to residential uses, the drive-through aisles, excuse me. The stacking of cars is appropriate. The stacking lane meets our width and depth standards, and they do provide a bypass lane. The positive aspects of this plan are that it does meet our land development code and the comprehensive plan in staff's opinion, and the site has been designed to lessen the impacts on the nearby residential. Of course, there could be negative externalities associated with this use. However, we believe that the site has been designed to help, to the best of its ability, ensure some amount of compatibility with the surrounding area. They've used buffering with the wall shown, the landscaping shown. The distance from the single-family homes is in excess of what our code requires, and they've located the drive-through on the opposite side of the building to help with the noise and the traffic from that. They've also been open to ensuring that their dumpsters will be located adjacent to the building and not adjacent to the single-family homes on the north boundary. Overall, after reviewing the land development code and the comprehensive plan, staff recommends approval of this with stipulations.
Done? Thank you. Commissioner Benak has some.
I just want to ask a question of staff regarding the buffer that they presented here today. Have you had a chance to look at this proposed buffer exhibit that they showed us today? This.
I have seen it. I don't think that.
I'm asking Robert Nagel. He's our landscape guy, right?
Robert Knable, Environmental Management. I have been sworn. I have not seen this till today, but I had discussed with Jamie about it, and with Gary Rice, who's the planner under my staff, who's been reviewing this, and we're okay with this. It meets the intent of the code, and it also will help with the noise a lot better than a regular vinyl fence. Yeah.
Okay, so that you think the fence will help with the noise. You don't have any problem with bald cypress trees in a parking lot. I've never seen that before, but what do I know? I'm not a.
Right down the road and the dry cleaner and the next one too at the bank.
Okay, so you do know because you're a tree person, so you know that the trees are.
They can grow there. I mean, they like wetter areas, but they will grow. I mean, but I mean, we can still work with them on the actual landscape plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I just wanted clarification, because I know sometimes when they submit something at a public hearing, kind of last minute, you guys hadn't seen it. You do have the ability to make them meet the standards of our code at the time of final site plan.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure of that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. I also have a question for you, Robert, about the buffer. So does this comply with the code? I know you said you haven't had time to review it. I see the landscaping all on the inside of the fence. Does our code allow that, or does it require the landscaping on the outside?
It does allow for inside. We've had that in a couple of situations where the fence is right up to the, like say, a neighboring property line, to where it's based on, it's also based on zoning, but it's also, you know, I mean, to maintain it, you can't go on somebody else's property to maintain it. There's been several other projects where we've allowed them to locate it on the inside because it makes more sense with the, maintaining it and stuff like that.
Okay, so, yeah, unless the code's been amended, I don't think that's what the code says, but that's why I was asking you guys.
It gives the director there's a 701.5 gives the director the approval for alternative screening.
Because, I mean, I think the reason, I'm asking you the reason for the way the code is written is maybe to soften that harsh wall, that hardscape, for the benefit of the people who live on the other side, so.
Well, generally, what would I mean? I don't know how they would get on the site to maintain it.
Private property.
Because it'd be on somebody else's property. So we've had, you know, getting access issues.
I think it would have to be on this property. I think the code requires it on this property, but then the wall is set inside. So. But,
right.
But you guys have reviewed this and found it to be acceptable.
Right. Yes.
Okay. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no one else, we'll open this up for public comment at this point. I have a couple cards. First one is Colleen Manchester. If you'd come up, you have 3 minutes, and please state your name for the record and that you've been sworn. Thank you.
My name's Colleen Manchester Arguelles, and I've been sworn. I'm good at public speaking. You're okay.
Welcome.
Get close
You're
to
one
the
of us. Go ahead and
microphone,
speak.
hon. We won't bite. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, I'm the one that lives right next to them, and it's going to affect me more than anybody else. I just want to make sure, because when I was looking at your drawing, it kind of has them like they were going to start by extending off of my PVC fence, which my PVC fence isn't my property line. My old fence that I left up, which I do have a picture where they had staked it. Taco Bell had done a survey and put it by the old fence, which I can give you all these if you want. But, yeah, I just want to make sure that they know that the property line is the old fence. I was born and raised here. This is my adopted granny's house that I live in now. And if you've all been around here forever, you've seen how much of the growth there's been. I know that everybody's already said, you know, about the traffic, and I'm not sure what time he did his study, because I had to change my route home from work, because when you come east on Highway 70, I can't make a left onto 31st because the traffic's backed up because of the lights from 33rd to where Sam's is. So I had to change my route to go around 51st to 33rd to get to my road to go in. And also, you already know that there's a bus stop and all that. And then, once again, you can only make a left onto 31st. The only way you're going to get to Taco Bell is to go around the neighborhood. When you go around the neighborhood, there's small kids, there's pets, there's, you know, it's just a neighborhood. It's not made for a restaurant to be put here, any kind of fast food restaurant. And like I say, they've built 2 car auto parts places. They've built a hair place there. They've built the blind place. I have never been to one of these meetings. I'm not against things being built, but I want something that has regular hours, something that isn't going to affect the neighborhood. And anybody who's grown up knows Taco Bell's where everybody hangs out after the bars. And it's nice that they got their drive-through up by the road, but everybody hangs in the parking lot. And right now, we have so many people playing the loud bass music, it shakes my windows. And at least I know when the traffic light changes that they're going to go ahead and go. They're going to be sitting in line waiting on an order. And it's right by my bedroom. You know, it's like, I just feel really, you know, that it shouldn't be built. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
Good
thank
job.
You very much.
You did good.
Did very well. Next one I have is Stephanie King.
I'm supposed to.
Remember to state your name and you've been sworn.
Stephanie King, and I've been sworn. Thank you. So they mentioned that the Florida Department of Transportation denied the application for the entry-exit on 70. And they did, but they said that they wanted them on the side streets. My understanding is that DOT denied it because there shouldn't be any more stops on State Road 70. So this is their answer. And it doesn't create new stops by having them on 32nd and 33rd, but it does create more cars slowing down and stopping to turn in. When reviewing the traffic impact statement, one of the planning commissioners asked traffic how they knew that it was low intensity. And the answer was based on national algorithms. And even the planning commission, some of them, thought that was unrealistic. I want to note that you guys probably already know this, but not all the planning commissioners voted to recommend approval. She mentioned this a little bit. I hope this is a good enough view, but if you're heading east, you can't turn here. So you're either going to turn on 33rd and you have to go up here and make a U-E, or you're going to stop traffic here to turn, well, I guess it's right in only, so you're not going to turn left. You're going to go up here and make a U-turn, or you're going to turn in here and drive through our neighborhood. The staff said that the neighborhood was high density. I have almost 2 acres in that subdivision. That's not high density. Every single family home in this subdivision, if it's not rated duplex, zoned duplex, it's zoned PDMU. So my next door neighbor, or across the street, right here in the middle of the subdivision, could build a restaurant or whatever they want. So I don't want to see you set a precedent by, approving this, and then all of a sudden we've got restaurants and there's no more neighborhood. The zoning's been in place since, I think she said 1989. Maybe it doesn't apply anymore. The roads are so thin, we can barely get 2 cars. You can't get 2 trucks, full-size trucks, like a Ford F-150, going opposite directions through. You have to pull over onto the grass into someone's yard. So I don't know how they're going to get semis through and what we're going to do when we need out and their semis are coming through. The roads are in terrible condition. It's a gravel road. The county recently sealed the road. I'm not sure that's the right word. It only made things worse. Still potholes. Now there's just little asphalt rocks hitting the cars. He mentioned, the Taco Bell guy mentioned that most of his business is done by 8 p.m. I don't think he can say that in this location. He doesn't have experience in this location. I also want to just kind of a question, if somebody could answer it at some point. I don't understand right in, right out exactly. Like, does that mean that you can only go right in, right out here and right in, right out here? Because right out here, again, is going to take them through the neighborhood. Thank you.
We'll answer
Thank
those.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did good. Oh, we need your stuff.
Oh, you need a copy, that's right.
We need it all, yeah. Thank you.
Next is Glenn.
Hello again, Glenn Gibellina, and I have been sworn. This is the most ill-conceived proposition I have ever run across for a while anyways. I cannot believe you're going to let this fast food restaurant come into our neighborhood and drive through our community till 2 o'clock in the morning, lights blaring in the windows, people coming out of bars coming through there. You're right, they don't know the neighborhood. Why don't we just vacation the end of the street? Just sell it to each, give it to each neighbor and make both of them dead-end streets. Let the neighborhood go on like it's been going on for 69 years. For them to use that as a cut-through is ill-conceived. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. You need to go back and rethink this. Craig said about the sound, 8 feet high. What about the air conditioners and the exhaust fans on the roof? They're above 8 feet. I didn't hear him address that. And the guy with the traffic, in his opinion, he's from Maitland. He hasn't spent 2 days here. What does he know about in my opinion, of the traffic studies. All this information is ill-conceived. It's not factual. It's not even close to the truth. That road is terrible. They need to vacation the end of the road or put in speed bumps, calming devices, because I will tell you, if I was in that neighborhood and I had drunks coming through at 1 o'clock, believe me, I used to be there, so I know what I'm talking about, with the loud music, disrupting the neighborhood, waking up kids that got to go to school in the morning, and these people are only going to be closed for 4 or 5 hours? That's like a bar. I owned a bar. I know those hours. It's insane. Now you got people cleaning up after 2 o'clock. They're not going to get out of the parking lot to probably 2:30 or 3 a.m. Then you got the people coming in at 6, going to open up. They got to get ready for the 7 o'clock opening. That place will probably only be shut down for a couple hours. There'll be constant people there, in and out, and cutting through that neighborhood. You've got kids there. You've got, it's just a disruptive factor. I urge this board to deny this, and the previous speaker was right. This belongs with a 9-to-5 establishment, like a blind or a doctor, anything but a fast food restaurant that's going to hammer that neighborhood to 2 o'clock in the morning. It's ill-conceived. You need to deny it. Let them go over by Oli's. They got a big parking lot there. Let them go by the gas station across the street.
Okay, is there anybody else from the public that would like to come down? If so,
You can
okay.
No.
Come on down.
Can you just
And
gotta
then
get
the
sworn?
other two want to just kind of line up behind her, and
I'll be brief.
You have to
You have to get sworn
in.
you have to get sworn, and you have
Raise
3
your right-
minutes.
There you go.
Anybody else that needs to be
Getting
sworn?
married. No, just. They've already been sworn, I think.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to the board will be truthful and accurate?
Yes, I do. My name is Denise Flessner, and I used to live at 5239 32nd Street East. Taco Bell came in. I had 30 days to move. The only concerns that I see are the traffic flow, and I do think it's not a great business plan for that area because of the children. The bus stop's right across the street. I spent hours outside picking up garbage from McDonald's. So I can't even imagine what kind of garbage they're going to have there, and the safety of the children. I cut through myself trying to get to my home there because you have to either do a U-turn going east or west, or you have to cut through the blind lot, which goes all the way through to the auto parts store, AutoZone, and people are going through there constantly, and children playing on bikes. The other concern is at the drive-through. We've all been through a drive-through when you're sitting there and they go, "Oh, pull through. Your order's not ready yet. Where is the overflow traffic going to go? Are they going to circle the lot? Are they going to have to go through another lot, come back? Are they going to have a designated area for the people that are waiting for their orders?" And I see that as a big problem for traffic. And I lived there for 4 years, and there were accidents every day, accidents, all night long. 2 o'clock in the morning, I had police officers pulling people in my yard for DUIs previously. So that's all I have to say about it. I really think it should be rethought through in the planning, and that's all I have to say. I think it's a big safety concern for the neighborhood and the sound concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Nancy Coffin, and I have not been sworn in.
Anybody else hadn't been sworn?
Anyone who
in?
might want to talk. Anyone hasn't been
You can all
sworn,
do it
they
at
want
once.
to speak. Stand up.
Just one more.
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to the board will be truthful and accurate?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Go the other way.
Overhead?
It's
okay. They'll help you.
Okay.
Somebody's coming to help
I live in the subdivision on 32nd Street East. We are a quiet subdivision. The only traffic right now through our subdivision are our local neighbors. We have very little crime because of that. We have very little late-night traffic. everybody is familiar because we live on the streets, so we drive slow through the area. We have very narrow roads, as was brought up, you can hardly pass. We have ditches on the sides, so that you have to be very careful. Everybody on the streets owns SUVs and trucks, and it's very hard for us when we meet each other to safely pass. We have no sidewalks, so we walk our dogs, our children, all on the street. I'm not sure about this right in, right out. It's the first time I have heard of it. And I'm questioning, this is a picture of our neighborhood. And if you're coming out this way, does that mean you have to make a right? Because if you do, it doesn't. Okay. Because traffic is a nightmare in that area. And just coming down the street here to go out onto State Road 70, sometimes I have to sit 2 or 3 minutes because traffic's backed up. So now I'm going to have to face the people that have come through out Taco Bell and are turning to, on State Road 70. I'm going to be backed up behind all them every time I want to go out my subdivision. There is no other way into this coming east except to come, like the orange line shows, to come in and turn left on 31st Street and come all the way through our neighborhood. Or you have to go up like the yellow line shows and go up to the light at 33rd, which is a heavy, heavy traffic intersection, and make a U-turn. Is that safe? I don't do it. The traffic is just a nightmare. There are so many shops along that street. I have a daughter that is a manager of a Taco Bell owned by a different franchise here in Manatee County. Their Taco Bell is open till 4 o'clock. They do most of their business between 12 and 4 a.m. because all the other restaurants are closed, and that's when their drive-thru is open. They have a lot of bar traffic because when the bars get out, people want to eat. We don't want the bars traffic coming through our neighborhood. We don't want their loud music. We don't want them seeing our vehicles, our property, and maybe bringing high crime into our area. And we're just very concerned. We realize that this is going to be a retail development on that property, but it doesn't have to be a fast food restaurant with a drive-through. It needs to be something that closes normal business hours and doesn't interfere with our lives.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gotta leave.
Ditto to everything that was already, my name is Antonio Steves, and I've been sworn in.
Thank
Ditto
you.
to everything everybody has already said. Now, the question or statement that was made was that there's very little impact traffic, 1 car per minute or something like that. If it's so low, why aren't they allowed to go in and out of 70, Route 70? If it's so low and there's not going to impact the neighborhood at all, why dump them on the 32nd Street? And when they say in and out, back to the same statement, which way is in and out? That's not explained at all. Now, most of you stated that you go through there most of the time. You see what kind of traffic there is in that road. You know it. And now go through that little neighborhood that we were talking about that we live in. Go through it and see what it looks like. Before you approve these, go there, check things out for yourselves, and then determine if this is the proper thing to do for the neighborhood. And if it is, then obviously go ahead and do it. But first, go through there. Most of you already said you drive through a lot, so you know what it's like. As stated before, when you're going east, you can't turn to the left. We can't turn to the left. When we go west from 32nd Street, we can turn right. The whole traffic is jammed through there. Now you're going to add on more traffic for us to get on 70. Whether you're going east or west, just from our little neighborhood, you can't do it. Now you're going to dump what they call low impact into that little street to get out onto 70. 70 is saying, don't do it on my street because we can handle you. So how are they going to handle it from 32nd? It's the same traffic coming onto 70. So if they can do it on 32nd, they should be able to do it on the driveway that's existing today on Route 70. There's a drive there to that property. So if it's already a driveway there that exists, utilize that driveway. That way you don't impact the neighborhood at all, just traffic-wise, but not the specific neighborhood, just 70. Because either way, they're going to be dumping on 70, so why through 32nd? Why not through the driveway that exists today on the property, which is dumps are on 70? So then you'd have 33rd, which is a high-impact road, and then you have 70, which is another high-impact road that you can go through. And that would make a lot more sense if you're going to allow it to even put it in a neighborhood like that. Again, talking about the kids and all that stuff that play in their little neighborhood, there's no traffic whatsoever now. And then the low impact. I don't know who does the study, but obviously it was not the county to do the study on the little road. The county should do the study, not somebody that's ready to build there. It's the wrong people to do the study. Thank you.
I'm Joe Lubau, and I've been sworn.
Thank you.
I'm a Manatee County business owner. I agree with everything that the folks representing the neighborhood have said, so I won't repeat all that. I think something that wasn't said is there's a better location right across the street. There's an abandoned gas station at the southwest corner of 70 and 33rd that backs onto commercial property, not residential. There are no neighborhoods. It would improve the appearance of the street. I don't quite understand why a corporation would invest in a property and spend the money before it's been approved. So now they're committed to this one that's in a really bad place, but it's in a really bad place. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public? Seeing nobody, will close public comment. Now we have some commissioners that have some questions to the staff or the applicant.
I would like to be on your list, Mr. Chairman, please, if I'm not already.
What?
Because
I
my
have you
light
at
is not
number
working.
one.
We're all working now.
You do?
They're working now.
I'm ready.
Well, mine is finally working. I don't know why.
Okay, thank you. So I did spend a lot of time analyzing this. I went to the site. I went there after work, so it was like 5:30-ish, and drove around the neighborhood several times. I also went to a Taco Bell that is on Manatee Avenue, and I don't know if this is the same proprietor or not. Same proprietor? Okay. And so that Taco Bell is between 59th Street West and 51st Street West, and it backs up to residential zoning. When you drive around that Taco Bell, that neighborhood, what you'll find is that although it's residential zoning, those homes have been converted right behind the Taco Bell to offices. And I'm sure it was because of some compatibility issues. I'm just guessing homes were, may not have worked too well with what was going on there. I've looked at the site across the street from this one. When you look at PDMU zoning and you look at this stuff on paper, it's like, well, it makes sense. It's on an arterial. It's got the proper zoning. When there's a McDonald's on the east side of this local street, but the depth of that shopping center goes very deep to the north. So there's a lot of commercial activity that's expected there. In this case, there's residential right up against this pretty small lot. Now, I really appreciate the wall design and the landscape buffer. I mean, the wall is not your standard wall. It's expensive. It's probably going to be a sound buffer, a good one. So I do appreciate the effort that they went to for that. But I also looked at the code. The purpose of the PDMU zoning district is to provide a complement of uses. And I asked myself, is this complementary to the surrounding uses? And I just didn't think that it was. And then I looked at, the things that we look at when this type of application comes forward, the transitions. Does it transition well? from where it is up against the adjacent uses. It didn't seem to transition well. Was it consistent with the existing development patterns? It wasn't consistent with the existing development patterns, in my opinion. Does it work at maintaining the strong character of the neighborhood? You know, that's something that's very important to us in our comp plan. We have this criteria that allows us to take a look at all development to make sure we're maintaining strong communities and the integrity of the neighborhood. I think this might be detrimental to the neighborhood. When I drove through the streets are very narrow, and there were kids out, and that really concerned me. I don't think the intent was ever to allow commercial or business traffic through these very narrow streets. And whether or not the traffic study shows that it's going to happen, you know, I think it is going to happen. I think you're going to have cars leaving Taco Bell and going through these streets, and it's going to create some safety issues, and that really concerns me. But, you know, most of all, we have a responsibility. I feel a responsibility to the residents who live there to protect their quality of life. And so for those reasons, I just am not going to be able to support this project. That's how I feel.
Commissioner Trace?
Clark, their service truck, which I love Taco Bell, and I've been there when their trucks come in. I'm always see a semi. If they're heading east, you know, they've done whatever they're heading east. How are they going to get to this Taco Bell?
Turn around.
I don't know where they take their deliveries, but let's say hypothetically they need to come in from the east. They probably should be coming across on 51st and down 33rd, not trying to come in from 37th.
So the only choice they're going to have is either to go down to the middle of the community and do a U-turn, which I don't think they do, or they're going to have to pull into that big, right behind the McDonald's, that kind of whatever shopping center. Pull in there, kind of do a U-turn, and then come back to get the right turn only?
He said 51st. They wouldn't take 53rd, is what he said.
So, all right, so how are they going to get to the store?
They could speak to the logistics of their deliveries better than I could, but just if I were trying to get deliveries to my store, I would bring them in. If I was bringing them in from the west, I would bring them in on 51st and down 53rd to make the right in.
So through the neighborhood?
33rd.
No, 33rd, sorry.
33rd, right, so through the neighborhood.
Why don't you ask the applicant that question?
Or ask, all right, if the applicant can answer that.
We shouldn't put him in the middle of it.
Well, Clark's our traffic guy.
Yeah, but he's
They have the burden
told
of
us
proof.
how they're doing it.
All right, whoever can answer this question, traffic people.
This map's not zoomed out far enough to show all of the roads. This is 53rd is State Road 70. North of here is 51st, which is another arterial road. It's the one that runs behind the Super Walmart and the Goodwill store. So traffic coming in that way could use 51st and come down 33rd and make a right in here. And if they come in from the other direction, they could come in and U-turn in, because this is the access that's limited to right in, right out. The residents have asked, or the public has asked, where are the access limitations? It's the access that's proposed on the east side that's limited to right in, right out. The one on the local road is the one that would allow for all turning movements.
This one is also right in, right out.
So the applicant kind of agrees with that assessment?
State Route 70 is also right in, right out.
But if I'm correct, because I've also, not intentionally, but I've driven around through there, just trying to find a shortcut through traffic, as we all have. The only way if you're heading east, the only way you can get there would be to take a left at the light, correct? If you're heading east on 70, if you didn't know about the back road behind the Walmart.
This access point is going to be limited to right in, right out.
Right, and I don't think you can make a right.
Local road connection, which isn't their access, but indirectly provides access, is also limited to right in, right out.
But I don't think you can get to that road from 70 if you're headed east.
The only way you get there is the way the residents have noted. You turn left here and circulate through the neighborhood and come down. You go through the parking lot in front of the auto parts store and the window treatment store.
Or you have to, or you could make a left at the light and go down and make a U-turn, or go into that shopping center and do a U-turn and then come back and make a right turn only.
Could make a turn within the shopping center here. This is the McDonald's on, well, it's off the page here, but at this corner, that's, you can see part of the McDonald's drive-through. They're an out parcel to a shopping center. This is the entrance to that shopping center. Traffic could go in there and turn around and come back out and come down. What they can't do is make a left and then an immediate left, because this access location will be limited to right in, right out.
Okay, I kind of listened to what Misty said, and I personally think it's compatible, because you got a McDonald's right across the street. I mean, fast food, except I'm with her, and I don't think I can approve it, just because I think it's very poorly traffic flowed. I don't think we want to have people cutting through the dry cleaners in the bank or in the auto place and going through neighborhoods, or having to make a left-hand turn and doing the U-turns. So, you know, I think 70, I mean, I think FDOT probably didn't get them because they already have a right-hand turn real close there, and I know you can't have access on a right-hand turn within so many feet. I understand that. So they're kind of caught in the bind there. But I think that traffic having to go to get there, go around the neighborhood, is just flawed.
An applicant can address their access
Rebuttal.
discussion that they had with Florida Department of Transportation, but I know that this is a designated, what they call access class 5 facility. The hallmarks of it are fairly frequent access, but these restrictive median openings like you see out here, where they've got, you can only make certain left turns, or there are no turns, no left turns at all. And this would not satisfy this, introducing a new access point would not satisfy this minimum spacing
I just think it's a flawed in and out, and I understand, like I said, I think it's compatible with the area. But to me, the traffic is the way the traffic has to flow is flawed. Okay, thank you.
Betsy?
So it's a right in, right out on 33rd, but there is no median at that location, correct?
I think there is.
Correct.
So really, people can make a left turn. And I say this from experience. I live right off of Tuttle, and at Tuttle and University, there's a CVS. And there's one of these little pork chop things, and people take left turns in there all the time. They just go and swing around and come in the access point there. So is there any plans for the intersection on 33rd and State Road 70 to improve it?
During the review of the traffic study, we did not find that additional turn lanes were needed at any of the access points. We haven't worked with them on the final design of the site as far as I know. In my opinion, it would make some sense to put a concrete separator in when they introduce that access point, so that we do get some assurance it'll be limited right in, right out.
Okay, then the right in, right out is important from your standpoint, right? Clark, you think that's important? To not
Yes.
have a left turn there. And I hate to jump, but does DOT have any say in that type of, when they review this, because it's an intersection, or is that totally us?
They should have had that conversation with FDOT when they asked about the access point, because FDOT would have noted that this was previously residential use, and so it's a change in intensity. And anytime they have direct or indirect connection to a state highway, they start thinking about whether or not changes need to be made. So they have some purview, but from their perspective, they probably considered it a win when they had the access from the county public road network as opposed to the state highway system, and didn't do much more with it at that point. The location we're talking about is here, is the right in, right out. This is 3 lanes southbound at this point, a right turn lane only, a through lane, and a left turn lane. When you've got to cross 2 lanes like that to get to a left turn lane or a right turn lane, it's a safety concern, and so that the width of that approach is why it's important to have the separator in this kind of situation.
Okay, and I know, because I've seen folks do some crazy things to get into that intersection there with the little pork chop thing, and my son actually had somebody almost hit him head on because he was in the turn lane to go to the Publix, and they decided to get in his lane because I thought that was a left turn lane. And he's like, no, trying to give him the, Chinese direction. That would sound racist. Okay, so when you come out of this subdivision on 32nd Street, 32nd, I don't think there's a court there, 32nd Street, is that restricted to left turn only, or can they take a right turn and go through the neighborhood? As shown on their plan. I'm just saying, what are they showing on their plan? I couldn't really tell. There were a lot of information.
Their proposed site plan, the PSP that we were looking at, just shows a connection to 32nd, and so they could conceivably turn left or right exiting on the west side of the project.
Okay, and are they showing any road improvements in that subdivision?
No, they're not. The kinds of things we look at are making sure that the roads from the access point to the thoroughfare, in this case State Road 70, are adequate for the types and volumes of traffic. They may, depending on the type of road and age, they may not fully meet our current standards, but they'll at least have a travel way that's adequate for the big trucks that use it and the more cars that we would expect on a road like that.
Do you know what the width of the pavement is in that neighborhood by any chance?
It's near 70 where it's been improved. It's probably 22 or 24 feet. In the neighborhood, it's narrow. The edge of pavement's not even well defined through parts of it, but call it 18 feet and chip sealed. So it's substandard surface. We wouldn't build a new local road that way.
Okay. And then the question came up about zoning. I know it's PDMU, and it looks like it was applied there because you had a bunch of mixed uses back in the day, and though clear was residential, but things transition. So do they have any, somebody had said, well, you could slap a commercial down anywhere in the neighborhood. Do we require them to meet locational criteria, or is there something for a commercial use that it does need to be on a arterial, or is could you really put a commercial use somewhere back in the neighborhood? That seemed not reasonable to me, but I'm not familiar enough with the code as it's currently written. I think it requires access to thoroughfare road or higher, doesn't it? Something like that? Putting you on the spot.
Go for it, Jamie.
Yeah, well, the future land use is ROR, so it is an area that I think maybe some offices could possibly pop up, further back, but as far as commercial uses, yeah, as far as commercial uses, it does have to meet commercial locational criteria, so it has to be on a thoroughfare, has to be within, I believe, 1,500 feet of a node in some cases. So, yeah, it's really the thoroughfare in this case that's drawing the commercial to this spot.
Okay, I want to give the neighbors some assurance that you can't just pop a Taco Bell in your neighborhood, within the neighborhood. Question about sound. Are there any proposed sound mitigation for a fan? We've had that brought to us in another neighborhood. Do you do any kind of sound mitigation when you put any type of rooftop fan or anything on your buildings?
Yeah, we raise the parapets above the elevation of all the mechanical equipment.
Okay, because we've been told that that's relatively easy to do in this other location, and it was a pre-existing change of use, so it's a little bit different. Huh?
It ain't getting done.
I know they're not getting any because of different circumstances, but we have been told it's relatively easy to do to mitigate it. Okay, roof fans, road improvements. I think those are my questions, unless you have an answer to me about how to block the access, left turn access into this proposed drive-through.
You're talking from 33rd?
33rd. And if you would...
You want to block a left access on the northbound, cutting across 3 lanes of traffic.
Correct.
A kamikaze driver coming through. That's what we want to block.
We have some.
Well, I'm always the popular person in a room sometimes, or not popular person. But what I would like to do is, I think, as unpopular an opinion my opinion might be, there is a terrible lot of misconceptions in the room. And I would hate for the residents to leave today with me at least not touching on those misconceptions. And I would hate for you guys commissioners, to make a decision based upon things that are not really factual, all right? All due respect to everyone's opinion, I respect it and I understand it, right? If anyone, I don't have a picture of it, but if anyone has Google Street Maps perhaps, has anyone driven the corridor that's back there that's in question that where people will make the loop-to-do and come around the other side?
No.
Well, as one resident mentioned, it's a gravel road, it's pine needles, it's all of 9 feet, 8 feet wide, it's dark, it's unlit. I love tacos. Personally, I would not do a third of a mile detour to go buy a taco, okay? I mean, I'll just use the state facility. That might just be me, but that's just something I want to suggest, that driving a rural road that's not a dirt road, but it's paved, but it's very bumpy and so forth, may not be the best thing that I would do to go buy a taco. I'll go to McDonald's or something, okay? That's one thing. That's just on the gravel roads. Now, on the issue of low intensity, don't get me wrong. State Road 70 has a ton of traffic, all right? Just to run some numbers by you, your Manatee County's documents say that that roadway has a capacity of roughly 5,600 peak hour trips. It can handle that much, sort of like a pipe with water in it. And currently, the volume on it is 4,800. So you're not failing the roadway, but you're getting there. You know, years from now, that's going to happen. Now, 4,800, just as a comparison, you know, is quite a bit of trips on 6 lanes. Now, you have a high-intensity, a high-use corridor. You have a Walmart. You have a Sam's. You have a gas station that was across the street. You have a McDonald's. In my opinion, that's the character of land use that is consistent with a Taco Bell. All right. Just going through some rebuttal items. You know, some folks said I am from Maitland. I do live in Orlando. I've been doing traffic impact studies for 15 years. I'm a PE, certified urban planner, AICP, and a professional traffic operations engineer. I'm not just making stuff up. I'm actually trying to be factual here. And my job is to provide the applicant evidence and provide evidence here too for your decision making. There was one other thing about, which is not really traffic operations, but headlight glare. Typically, a headlight is 2 feet off the ground. That's the usual standard, unless you're a bus or a F-350 or something like that. You have an 8-foot fence. That usually an 8-foot fence is going to limit the glare directly into people's windows. It's a common thing. It comes up on a lot of these type of projects that are located next to a residential situation. So it's a thing that comes up all the time, and that's why an 8-foot fence is usually, you know, asked for by commissions rather than a 6-foot fence, and that's why the vinyl is usually not a popular option, but sound barrier type options that is being proposed here. There was a question on right in, right out. What I meant was the access over here on 70 is right in, right out. This access is right in, right out. Of course, this one that will be here is a full access. You can make a left and so on. I didn't mean that there's no restriction to prevent someone from making a left out here. So I'm sorry if I confused that, and I apologize. But certainly, look, let's face it. I don't think patrons of this establishment want to drive through a third of a mile detour to get out, and certainly don't want to take a third of a mile detour to get in. Okay? There was a question, and it's visible here, that people can turn left onto 31st Street and go around and come around. Sure, yes, that can physically happen. But if anyone were to see the pictures that I have seen and I've driven, because I'm, you know, part of me doing what I do, I have to do these things, driven that location, I mean, I can't drive more than 5 miles an hour through there. I mean, I could go a little faster, sure, but if I don't like my car. So I see it very possible that people aren't really going to make that detour. So let's ask the question, how do they get to the Taco Bell? You would have to make a U-turn, and a U-turn on a 6-lane road is much easier to do than if it was a 4-lane road. A 4-lane road with standards is a little bit of a tight turn to make. On a 6-lane road, you have that 3rd lane that you can swing into. So that's why, for those reasons, that's the type of thing that DOT supports. And I know this is probably very long-winded, but I just needed to get through a couple of points, and there were, many people that made good points, and I just wanted to address them. The other thing is, one question came up was, why didn't DOT allow an access onto State Road 70? And really, truly, it has to do with safety. If you locate an access too close to an intersection, you tend to have an increase in rear end crashes. And so for that because people slow down. And for that reason, that's why they were not in favor of that. It's actually probably doesn't meet the spacing criteria. From here to there, it doesn't meet spacing criteria to have that access. So that's why the safer alternative was to put the access on the two adjacent streets. It wasn't because of DOT didn't want the access or thought it wasn't a good access or anything like that. It just happens to do with the providing. DOT's concern is on the state road and moving people on the state road. They got 4,800 cars on that thing in an hour. They got to move traffic. The less access they have, the better for them. And just what set the precedence here, in terms of development, is that it's not. I don't think it's the Taco Bell that's setting the precedence. And this is just. I'm not really. I am a planner, but I'm not here in the capacity of a planner. What set the precedence for these type of development is the 6-lane road that's there. I mean, there's a lot of traffic noise there, even without the Taco Bell. So this Taco Bell putting a building there may actually have a little buffering effect, but I'm not a noise expert and I can't speak to that. But I can tell you on a 6-lane road, when I used to do NEPA environmental studies and PD&E studies in Manatee County, I've actually done studies on State Road 70. 6 decibels is what you typically have for a 6-lane road like this. 66?
60 decibels.
60 decibels, right? So a Taco Bell isn't going to produce 60 decibels continuously. Yes, someone may have music. It may be short-lived. Now, these are not trade-offs that we're suggesting. I'm just trying to give maybe some context to the situation. So I'll pipe down now, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to help. But I just wanted to at least put some things in perspective, if you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Priscilla?
I actually have a question. Just not sure that you actually understand your audience here or the people in Manatee County. I know groups of people, when they come in from fishing, come in from hunting, they go straight to the Taco Bell because it's open.
Right.
I mean, I'm talking at 3 o'clock, and I don't think y'all close at 2. Maybe y'all do somewhere, but the ones I know are open till 4. And to say that they're not going to drive a third of a mile, I know kids that drive 32 miles to go to the Taco Bell because it's the only thing open.
So ma'am.
And why are y'all open till 4 o'clock in the morning? Because there's people coming, correct?
Certainly. So yes, ma'am. And so put it in perspective.
So to say you're not going to go a third of a mile, I'm not buying that story.
I mean, I do fish and I do hunt too. All right. So I do understand. I don't have a boat, but I help my buddy pull his boat. And I tell you what, he ain't taking his boat through back there anyway. Okay. So that much I know. I'm just going to say that much.
I'm just telling you. I mean, I know a lot of people that go to the Taco Bell at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they drive a lot more than they'll go more than a third of their mile out of their way.
Yes, ma'am.
Much more.
And that is for sure. Taco Bell is open late. What's the slogan? Open late till it's great, something like that. But at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can make a U-turn. You probably have the green anyway all the time on that, so you don't have to do that cut through. At 3 o'clock in the morning, it's dark.
You're still driving with your lights on.
Right, but it's dark. If you didn't, okay, so.
There's no arguing. I agree with it. I agree 100%. It is dark at 3 in the morning. Not that I see it very often.
If I could inject, at 3 o'clock in the morning, we don't have the trips and we don't have the congestion there.
One person.
So if someone's coming east, what they may do is they may cut into 31st, but they're going to cut through that parking lot and they're going to come this way. So you're not going to have a motivation, since there's a relief valve here at 2 in the morning, to go through there. Now, long term, that's not a solution for anybody, but we do, the only option that's going to keep people out of those streets is gates. You're going to have to gate those streets in the back, and that might be the best thing. If you want to preserve the neighborhood, you need to close both those streets, because if you look at the current use, we are 3.5 sides commercial. We're commercial to the east, we're commercial to the south, we're commercial to, the east, south, west, and half of the north. There's a commercial establishment on the north side of our property.
What is it?
What is that?
That's, if you look, you can see those are, I believe that's landscape or plumbing trucks.
Oh, yeah, you can see.
So that's already commercial. If either of these two homes sell, you're going to someone that's currently on 33rd Street, that's what's going to happen. You're going to see that commercial side flip and cut through 32nd. When you look at Taco Bell's, we don't do bar traffic because we want bar traffic. What happens is those Taco Bells may be in a location near the interstate or near bars. This is not in a bar location. You don't have, well, you do, but a neighborhood bar is a neighborhood bar. You don't have large numbers of drunken sailors coming out into this commercial on this right of way. So I think it's presumptuous for people to make up imaginary scenarios about drunks parking in the lot. It's just, it's not going to happen. So, and if it does, we have security.
Okay, Commissioner Whitmore?
We could change the configuration on the lot to stop any right turns out of the property.
So, yeah, so just trying to be responsive to the community. They are our neighbors. We want to be a good neighbor.
No right turn?
What it would be is that, I don't have the right pencil, but instead of having a flared access, you would kind of, I don't know if you could see that, but can you see that? Oh boy, that's not going to work.
He can zoom.
But it will restrict a right out, and it will also restrict a left in. So therefore, if someone did want to cut through, especially if someone had a boat or something, they couldn't make that left in comfortably. They would have to go over a curb, and that would, I think, one of the biggest concerns I heard is, the cut through traffic around. We don't expect any of our patrons to make that right or go around, but we can physically put up a curb that will I think, restrict that physically, even if it were to happen, right?
Okay.
So, yes.
Thank you. Thank you for, I went on Google Earth and I could see it so much better, and I did see this landscape company right behind you. I thought it was a house. On the maps that we have weren't that good, so I have to disclose I am on Google Earth for public records since it's quasi-judicial. I've been going both ways before, when it was delayed, and today. Manatee Avenue, I don't know how big that is, and you said it's the same people. Unfortunately, with this job, I was supposed to go home and get my husband some, drop him off, and come back by 5, but that's not going to happen. I go there quite a bit, unfortunately. I'm sorry. My husband likes it, and I don't have time to cook him dinner, unfortunately, sometimes. But I have never seen a semi-truck in there, ever. I've seen pickup trucks and little trucks. Never seen a semi-truck. I don't even know how they would get in there. If somebody driving a semi-truck, they'll go to another business and then go over or just go somewhere else. I've never seen a semi-truck, so I have to disclose that. And I've been around 50 years in Manatee County, and I've seen it since it's been there, and I've never seen that. I have noticed on Manatee Avenue too, and I can only use it from that experience, is the speakers and everything are on the west side, almost to the facing Manatee Avenue. So that part's good. So again, all the noise is concentrated further up. The businesses that you're talking about, they were houses before and they sold. We don't know why. Maybe they didn't want to be there, but that's their rights too. And it must have been zoned something for commercial for them to be there. They must have changed the zoning. I've never seen anybody loitering because the darn parking lot is so small that you couldn't. I mean, you could barely get your cars in there on the one on Manatee Avenue. So you go in there. I would ask, I would ask that, and I like there was a citizen that came up about the semis, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I've never seen it, and I think you should put something there that they're not allowed in there. One time they'll drive there and find out they need to go somewhere else. They can go over to McDonald's. You have a Taco Bell further east on 70? It's shared with a chicken place or something? Long John's, okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, we have to get the answers on the record, and I'm unclear. Are we just in question and answer thing, or are we having Aqua's rebuttal?
I'm doing questions and answers.
Okay,
I
just
got a
make sure, 'cause it
question
wasn't
after
quite
all this, I
along.
do.
Okay.
We haven't even gotten to the rebuttal.
But,
Okay.
that you have one there, are you going to, and here was my question, are you gonna keep that one open, or are you gonna close it?
No, we'll keep it open.
So you have one closer to the interstate, and you have one here?
Yeah, and
Okay.
for the record, that one closes at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, and for me to support this, because I do think it's compatible with 70. And like you said, there's actually commercial all around it. Now that you've disclosed that there is one just north of it, the landscaping company, unfortunately, there's houses there too that have to deal with all that. But I would, for me to support it, I want a specific hour, not, I'm hearing that there's some of them are up, I guess Priscilla's sons go at 3 or 4 in the morning. I think, in all fairness to the neighbors, we have to have a reasonable time. And also, I would request respectfully, and I know it's not easy, because all of us have, I would want a speed table of some type in the parking lot. Because that, you go there once or twice, and then you're gonna not do it again to cut through. And just like when you go down 32nd or 31st, you can go there one time and nobody will ever do it again, probably. It's gonna be a learning curve. But in order for me to support it, because I do think it's compatible with all the uses that we're looking at today. And, but I had concerns about the road and going into the neighborhoods. Thank you for doing the no right turn onto 32nd that you said that you would do. And this landscaping company, is it gonna be adjacent to, does anybody know if it's gonna be adjacent to the wall that you're putting up? How far back? Because I'm not, like, again, I'm on Google Earth, so I see a landscape, the landscape business, is it adjacent to the wall?
Yeah, it's a, I think it's the extension, right, the 200 feet.
Well, it's
Mr. Chair, we can't have screaming from the
Sir,
audience,
Mr.
and we
You
can't
don't
have
have to talk
commissioners
here.
giving
You can't talk to
testimony
them.
because they're under oath.
Call my engineer up.
Oh, well, where's your engineer? Oh, they're thinking you're talking to him. Okay, you need to come up.
I don't know about the landscape company. There's a.
I'll ask staff then, maybe they know. The adjacent property, can I ask staff if they know if there's sir, let me ask our staff, because I can ask. Is there
How far is the 200 feet?
business just adjacent to it, or there's not a house between the landscaping company and the proposed wall, is there?
I believe the property appraiser has that listed as single-family residential.
Okay, so somebody's just running a business out of it, probably. Okay. All right. If you can commit to, and again, we don't negotiate at the thing, but for me to be able to support it, the neighbors have brought up speed tables, which I support what they're saying. The no write-in onto 32nd, and hours is a big thing, and I can respect that.
We can commit to a time. You'd recommend what times?
Sir, I think you should do that under rebuttal. I don't think we're under rebuttal yet. You guys can talk about it.
Make a suggestion to the applicant that maybe this would be a good topic to ask for a continuance, because I'm guessing we're up here kind of, planning your project for you.
Yeah.
And I'm not a planner.
It's engineering.
But there seems to be enough dispute or concern, and I think you're, very receptive to some of the things that have been suggested up here. Sure. But I think absent that, we're probably going to be here for hours trying to negotiate things back and forth, and that's, I don't think, is our job.
Thank you.
You need to leave
That's
it
fine.
to the people.
April 4th for April?
Well, just 1 second here. I had to ask Ms. Tusing. I did ask her before this meeting by email. I thought the April 4th agenda was full, but she'll have to state that. It's either April 4th or May 2nd. Can you propose a date, Ms. Tusing?
Yes, the April 4th meeting is full because we only have the morning for our land use items because you have Lake Lincoln in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
And don't know how long Lake Lincoln agreement will be going. And we have, I think we have 6 or 7 cases just for the morning. Then we also, May 2nd, I think the agenda is pretty full too, but we could certainly continue it to the May 2nd meeting.
I would like.
Do you think there'd be a day we could do another special land use meeting that
add another day?
All of us might be available for a morning, or is everything pretty?
Well, I just do want us to state, we don't have a full board here, and Mr. Bellamy needs enough time to be able to review the record if he's going to vote on this project. So that's another reason not to do it on April 4th, because he'll have to be up to speed on this.
I'll make a motion May 2nd.
John wants to say something.
I think May the 2nd is the soonest reasonable time that we can do this. A special meeting for this board. You're getting ready to enter into your budget sessions. Your calendars are slammed. I can tell you
Motion that we
right now.
continue it to May 2nd, so you don't have to re-advertise and all that.
And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to state for the record, my understanding that we have to keep the public hearing open because the applicant is submitting new information. The public needs time to look at it and respond if they want to respond to it by speaking again. So I would reopen the public hearing
Correct.
and suggest if you could do that in your motion.
Yes, I'll include that in my motion.
Second, yes.
So it's and I'll just summarize, this motion to reopen the public hearing on ordinance PDMU 18-18P and continue the public hearing to May 2nd, 2019 at 9:00 a.m. or soon thereafter as may be heard in these chambers.
No.
Is that
So
correct?
That's
Commissioner?
correct. And my seconder agrees?
Yes. Rather see that than turn it down.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much.
See you in May.
Okay,
20-minute break?
no, I think we can maybe get this done. We need to get down to basically commissioner comments.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
Mr. Barnott?
Just to let everybody know, there's a public open house on Monday, April the 1st, for people to review the flood insurance rate maps that have been proposed by FEMA. It's from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Bradenton Area Convention Center. And also on Tuesday, April the 2nd, from 1 to 7 p.m., same location.
Question for him.
Okay, what, Vanessa?
John, can you tell me, do you guys already have a copy of those maps? The new FEMA maps? Have you received them yet?
I think we have.
I'd like to see them.
Like to see him too.
Yeah, can you set up a time, or can you share them with us, or?
Sure.
Okay, that'd be great.
We'll do that right away.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, seeing nobody else, we are adjourned. See you all in 15 less minutes.
We have.